Greetings, everyone. Hope you are all having an amazing day, whether it be morning, evening, or afternoon, as is the case for me here in Norway. Anyway, hope you're all excellent. I am, and so are my co-hosts for today. Script Doctor, how are you?
I am doing well today. Thanks so much for having me this morning.
Absolutely, and we're also joined by Cultured Casino. How are you this fine day?
Fantastic! It's been a wonderful morning so far. So I'm doing really well. It's a good Monday. Good Monday.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Yeah. And it's a good Monday and it's the start of a new week and everything like that. Some people like to sleep in when a new week begins. So hopefully Tom will be joining us before long here. But in the meantime, we have Script and Culture here, and we have some movie news and everything. So today we'll be talking some Dune, we'll be talking some James Bond, and it would be horribly remiss of us if we didn't continue that whole, Alec Baldwin discussion with the accidental firing. I do believe that is the not firing, shooting.
Accidental discharge.
Accidental discharge. Well, was it accidental? I mean, he didn't mean to fire. It just wasn't meant to be a live round.
True.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just us here. We also have some excellent people joining us out there in the comments. We have Fel Anderis, who has some issues with Dune. We have Will Bloom here, who wonders, what is a Yahtzee? Well, that is a YouTube-approved version of saying one of those like nasty people in Germany that had like a strife there back in the 40s or something.
Yeah. Yes. Not to be confused with the board game, which is super fun.
Yeah. Exactly. Not to be confused with that. And we have the Norwegian Blue saying, hail. Indeed, hail one, hail all. Sander Hammerstag says you're fired. Yeah, you have to be careful with the terms here. For outcasts, probably how you say it, suggest negligent discharge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was lots of negligence at all levels there, but we'll get back into that. We also have Bob A here. We have Rob Altus here, and he says, hail Andre, Culture, Script, and eventually Tom. Good morning to chat. Indeed. We have Willie Woodford here. We have the Islington girl here. How is Islington today? And we have Cultured Casino both in the chat and on screen, so nothing is better than that. We have Filmlars representing Denmark. Duck Nation is here. Lindsay the Cynical Geek is here. Hector Garcia is here, and Duck Nation is here. So we have quite a fine collection of viewers from across the board already, and nothing is better than that. Do us a favor and smash that like button, because that really helps visibility, and also help share the stream if you can be asked, because that would also be most helpful. Before we get in, we have a couple of super chats. We have Michael Miller, who says, with Baldwin, I have more concerns as to why a live round was in the prop and not a blank. Was it to cause drama to prompt the strike? And Dune did fine. Yeah, we'll get into that, all of it. I think that sounds a little bit conspiratorial, but we shall see as we get there. Thomas Plummer says, IATSE, not to be confused with IATSE, IATSE, despite sounding similar. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Maybe that's what he meant.
Yeah.
That could be. That could be. Yeah. Brightest Day is just showing some love, and thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And then we have Deleted Teens, who says, hail Andre, Culture, Script, Wrenches, and chat. Don't be too hard on Tom. I only just woke up myself. Yeah, and this is true. I mean, Tom, he is up streaming 24 hours a day, and when he is doing that, he's editing for me. And we have a huge scripted Indiana Jones video coming out. And that's going to take some work. So, yeah. And Troy Pacelli clarifies that, he thinks that the chat was asking, what is IATSE? And Script, why don't you go us through that? What is IATSE?
So IATSE is, the below the line type of union for basically your crew. So this goes from people who work in electric department, your best boys, your grips, your caterers, your drivers, couriers, all that type of stuff. These are people that actually dominate the credits at the end of the movie. They end up doing most of the stuff aside from the compositing and visual effects teams, and they're the ones that make sure the film gets made. Like in actual production, they're not the money people. They're the laborers. Really, it's the blue collar jobs. They're usually the best of the industry because it takes quite a bit of expertise and qualification to get your union hours to join IATSE. And you work constantly all the time, and you also work longer than pretty much anyone else does during the production process. In some cases, the editor and director will work longer overall, once for with pre-production, production, and post. So yeah, they are the unions, and they are the ones that are responsible for making the movie look as best as they can, as per the directions of the director and production itself.
And these would be the same people that Ruby Rhodes held beneath contempt, right?
Yes. Yes, unfortunately that is the case, and she is not the only type of actor with their head lodged in a colon that used that way.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have Night King, who says, I think the Dune sequel will happen. The CEO of Warner Brothers said as much. She pretty much confirmed it. Oh, you mean the same way that J.J. Abrams confirmed Star Trek 4 the week that Star Trek Beyond opened?
Yeah.
I haven't seen Star Trek 4 yet.
Yeah, so no, the only thing that was confirmed is what the metric would be for a sequel. And that's based on HBO Max. So we have yet to get those numbers.
Exactly. So no, a sequel is not confirmed at this point. And she said, if you look really closely at what she said, she confirmed nothing.
Yeah, our answer did not say we were getting a sequel. She hinted at it. She did not say. Yeah,
she said it's up to HBO Max reception, pretty much. Yeah. And I'm paraphrasing.
Exactly.
And so did Jason Kilar. I mean, let's just be clear. I mean, really.
So. Exactly. That is exactly right. So everyone who takes for granted that we're going to get a sequel because Sarnov said so, don't count your chickens just yet, because that may not be the case. I'm going to run through a couple of classic super chats here, and then we're going to get into the Dune business right away. Said, hi, gents. Hello, everyone. Then we have, let's see which one, next one I can get up on screen. Stargate 404 says, I drove an hour and a half each way through a bad storm to get to the closest IMAX theater for Dune on a Sunday night. It was worth it. Wasn't packed, but it was about 60 to 70% there. Hoping for part 2. And with that, let's actually begin by assessing the probability of a part 2 by looking into some of these numbers here. So I'll see if I can't produce them. Just give me 1 second here, because usually Tom does this. And when he's not here, then I have to do it, and that takes, like forever. But just bear with me, and we'll get there. I'm the one who sent him the links. Now I just have to share it on screen. So
one of the fascinating parts, even before we get to the numbers, is the fact that with Dune, given the deals that's made with its distribution model, the numbers are almost inconsequential to a certain degree, because they've already pre-sold it for quite a lot of money to Legendary, sorry. And so we're seeing pretty much why on Sarnoff and Kilar are stating that it's dependent on HBO Max performance as opposed to box office.
Yeah, this is true, because the box office is basically, it's largely inconsequential, but I think they will take it into the equation. And what we have now is the 3-day weekend, the domestic opening weekend, is 40 million. And here then comes all of these hedges that are required to to try to make something that isn't a hit sound like a hit. So they're calling this the biggest weekend for a movie, also debuting on HBO Max. This, of course, is accurate. Like under normal circumstances, Dune opening to 40 million would have been a disaster of magnitude. But given that it's also on HBO Max, these numbers are, I would say, okay. They're not too bad, but then again, they're not too good. That's my take on it. But I'm curious, what do you guys think of this? What do you make of a $40 million opening weekend, given that it's also on HBO Max? Culture.
I think this is actually pretty decent. It's thwarting, some of the concerns people had about a day and date release, but at the same time, it definitely affected the box office. I would say I'm going to project that the Samba TV numbers, when they come in, and some other metrics that we get, even, some other modeling, is going to show that this film was heavily streamed here in the United States and Canada on HBO Max this weekend. I'm going to say that actually, you probably saw those numbers jump at about 6 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. You probably saw a lot of people watching this on their television at home, which again is a shame because after seeing it, on your TV, are you going to be inspired to go see it in a theater? Well, there'll probably be some people that will be, but I and I know a lot of people want to say this is underperformance. I think this is kind of hopeful because it outpaced a lot of other films that were also released simultaneously on the day and date. We've looked at, similar triumphs that have done, less on their opening weekends on day and date as well. And in fact, there are some other films that didn't even have day and date that performed far less than this film. The budget was also, not terribly high for this. So overall, I'm going to say this is well below what I had hoped for. Well below what I'd hoped for, but this is actually above the projection that was set for this weekend. So that's a lot of gobbledygook. Decide what you want out of that one.
Well, you're also kind of missing an extra point here, which is that it's for those that don't have HBO Max in Canada because it's not entirely. You have to get it with a VPN up here. Right. And I don't believe it's on Crave. And here's the other part too. The weekend that Dune debuted was also the weekend where pretty much 90% of the country would have to show specific ID in order to get into a movie theater, and a lot of people refuse to do that.
Wow.
So you basically have a government mandate interfering with the business model of a film because theaters are not an essential service. And in order for them to stay open, they have to record such information of their patrons, which a lot of people are very upset about. Right. And as a result, they're not going to be going to a movie theater. So you're losing, I would say, maybe 15 to 20% of the potential box office that Canada would provide, given its population size, to this overall film as a result of that action that happened specifically that weekend.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And that's another thing that's going to affect the box office or will have affected the box office. But there's another thing that I wonder, which I think really screwed the movie over. And that is opening it in select international markets 6 weeks ago. Yeah. I was lucky I got to see it then. But my feeling from talking to you guys, to all my other friends around the world that weren't in Norway or one of the other places where it did open 6 weeks ago, their feeling was, I want to see it now. I don't want to see it in 6 weeks. I'm not going to have any hype left in 6 weeks. I'm hype and geared and ready to go see it right now in this moment. But then that hype is going to pass when when there's no way of seeing it for another 6 weeks. And when it comes, they're already over it. How much money do you think has been left on the table because of that?
60 million.
Easily.
Yeah. This should have been a minimum 100 million opening weekend if it debuted worldwide on 6 weeks ago. Yeah. Easily.
And domestically this would have been an incredible open. I think worldwide, aren't we over 221 million as of today?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So look, I think
that's bad for a movie that's been out for 6 weeks with this kind of budget.
It's a slow climb. Yeah.
And again, the strategic release thing that, it worked when you started in China for films like Fast 9 and things like that. This film, I think it debuted the same day in China as it did here in the States. It did.
Yeah, and it underperformed there.
Yeah, I was going to say it did decent numbers, but it was definitely an underperforming film in China.
In China, it did 20 million, and the Chinese box office now, in many ways, has overtaken the American or domestic box office.
Yeah.
Granted, there's like new cases and new variants and new spikes and stuff like that there that may limit the box office somewhat, but still, we can only speculate, but it only pulled in 20 million. So half of this.
Yeah, and again, I mean, one of the reasons that that's occurring in China, I think, and again, this takes us out of exactly this conversation, but is because the films that have been hitting the giant numbers are the propaganda films that you get extra social credit score if you go see them. I mean, the one that's been doing the bang up business there recently is 100% a propaganda film where China beat the Americans, kind of a story. So but you're right. I mean, the Chinese box office is passing the U.S. box office, at least as of right now, and it did underperform in when you compare it to what they've been doing on other films over there. But again, I mean, you've also seen the Chinese shy away from the 3D IMAX. It really didn't push viewers to the big format screens in China, so that could have helped. But hey, I mean, IMAX has been pushing the numbers up quite a bit in recent films, and Dune's no exception. Just obviously not in China.
Yeah, and then in the chat, then we have Piano Dan who says, wasn't the prediction 30 million? How is 40 an underperform? Oh, I will tell you, because when they prior to the opening weekend predicted that we think this is going to make 30 million, then that doesn't mean that 30 million is what they wanted to make. That's what they think it's going to earn. But they needed to earn 60 million. That means that the predicted number is still a flop number. Like, they can predict a movie to bomb horrendously, and if it merely underperforms, then it's still an underperformer. So how is 40 an underperform? Well, that's easy. It beat expectations based on the asking people and what they think it's going to make. But considering that, as we just said here, if this had opened worldwide 6 weeks ago, it probably would have made 100 million. So they left 60 million on the table. Yeah. From that point of view, 40 is absolutely an underperform because so much money was left on the table. And that, of course, begs the question, what about sequel prospects? Before we get into that, I just want to highlight another super chat here that we just got from Comrade Roof Korean the Based, who says, I watched Dune at home 5 times. Wow. I have the PC for it. Do we know the numbers are true? Or are they tanking numbers on purpose to change movie making?
That would be directly contrary to the folks over at Warner Media in their recent media presentation and quarterly, stating specifically that they believe the theatrical model will be around for years and years and years to come, and that they are heavily going to be leaning into that. So it would be contrary to what they just told investors. At least, based on their public statements. We don't know what the streaming numbers are yet. Samba TV, like I said, will give us some insight, but until I'm able to pull that data, which I've been looking for, we won't know. Script.
Yeah, and I also think that these numbers probably are pretty real. I see no reason why they would lie about it opening to 40 million. The bigger question, though, is here we then had Roof Korean. He saw it 5 times on HBO Max. They're obviously going to register that, and I'm sure many people did that. Plus, it then did 40 million domestically, and it's brought in more than 200 million worldwide, which honestly is not that impressive either. And again, I blame that they really screwed themselves by opening it 6 weeks early in limited markets.
Yeah.
Thereby creating the hype everywhere, and then the hype will have died down by the time the rest of the world and the big markets get to see it in the first place. So what about sequel prospects? Anne Sarnoff hinted at it, but contrary to what many believe, she did not confirm that the sequel was coming in any way, shape, or form.
It's true.
They will be waiting to see what numbers are produced here. I don't think we're going to learn anything for like a month or something. They're going to take that long to assess how it performs on HBO Max. But what do you guys think? Culture, let's begin with you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we won't know anything about whether we're going to get the second film until after, there's some solid data that comes out that shows this film, brought in a lot of eyeballs on HBO Max. And I think Script is one of the people who said it first. This film is going to depend on those eyeballs. And that's
Tom also said that as well. Like this is what was predicated when HBO Max was launched, is we're looking at specific films. How they're going to perform on that service will dictate if they're going to be continued or not.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they were sitting on the projections, and the long range tracking was sitting at 32 million for this film. And it overperformed those numbers. But had this thing opened 6 weeks ago worldwide, there's no doubt about that. But whether or not there's a sequel, yeah, it's going to hinge on, what we see streaming wise. And like I said, we're going to get those models because we'll have some comparison numbers from Samba and some other places that'll show us what it looks like they're getting. And they may actually confirm it. I mean, they aren't talking about full transparency for HBO Max or, Warner Media, but I think that you're going to start to see more of that because they're going to want to start selling the advertising on the Discovery Plus Warner, whatever they call that service, Warner Discovery Plus. I don't know. Anyway, they're going to want to try to sell the advertisement side of that thing, and they're going to have to be somewhat transparent with viewership. So, again, we'll see.
Yeah. Script, how about you? Do you think we'll be getting a sequel?
I actually do have high hopes for it. There's a lot of stuff that was invested in it to begin with, including standing sets and things that are still at that location in storage. It would be financially beneficial for them to reuse those for a sequel shoot. I have been hearing lots of people in the US have been streaming it constantly on HBO Max, which is nice because they want those numbers up. And I also think that it's in WB's best interest that they're hoping that the number threshold that they have set for this movie gets passed so that they can, let out a sigh of relief and say, yes, we're going to complete this Dune series with the sequel. Because one of the things that should have a lot of people kind of anticipating a sequel is who is going to be cast in that sequel to fill out the remaining roles that were not presented in this first movie for those that are least fans of Dune. Like on that poster there's 3 of those people aren't going to be back. And I'm not going to spoil it for those who haven't seen the movie. So you're going to have to watch it to find out. So go watch it. If you can in theaters, please go check it out in theaters. If with HBO Max, watch it on HBO Max, put it on the background. I really want to see this series completed in a theatrical style film epic. I think it's long overdue for that. I may have my own apprehensions about the director, but I'm still getting far more positive reactions to this film than negative. So I'm really hoping that that Warner Brothers, that the audiences voice their support for Dune, so that Warner Brothers gets smart for the first time in 20 years and continues this film.
Exactly. So do I. Like, vote with your wallets, people. Don't let the 2000 sci-fi TV series be the most complete version of Dune that we have, because that's not complete either. I mean, it never got all the way to God Emperor of Dune. It was supposed to, but they changed direction for the channel as a whole, and that prevented that from happening. And yeah, as you said, there are some very exciting characters that we still haven't seen that aren't in this movie. So those hoping for Count Fenring, that is still on the table.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's in every moment that you're supposed to feel something in this film, you do. They nailed it when it came to that. And I know people complained about the pacing of the film, and I know we're not doing reviews here, but I'm
let's hear what you thought anyway.
Oh man, I loved every minute of the film. I know that, like I said, a lot of complaints I heard was, the pacing was bad or whatever. And they're like, you could have told this story in, a much shorter period of time. And I'm like, but everything here is important to what's coming, later. It's just like with the book, you have to get through all of it so that you understand the second half of the story so that you're able to, process what's about to happen. And for those of you who are worried about the pacing of this first film, in the second film, it will step it up. You have no idea what's about to happen. And I love the world building. I'm not as down on the soundtrack as I was before, because I'm thinking that I agree with Mr. Tickletrunk now that the sound design, was well done. I hate the fact that there isn't a lot there to like put on in my car to drive around with. But the film itself, every moment you're supposed to feel something, you do. The presentation of other planets is there. They're kind of crafting out the different houses very well. This compared to Lynch's Dune, and again, I'm a Lynch Dune fan. But compared to that, this is a more faithful adaptation, and B, it's a better story. It's a better story, and I think one of the reasons why this didn't make more money is because it is so long and it didn't get as many theatrical turns. But as far as the film goes, I first of all, my opinion turned around on Timothy
Chalamet,
and probably on the lady that plays the mother.
Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, she is brilliant. Jason Momoa is not an actor, but his portrayal of the character he played in this is quite good. We really didn't get to see the Beast Reborn in full effect, so I can't say anything specifically about that. But I do think that Stellan was brilliant in that. And again, those are just my opinions. So I thought it was a good film, and I'm going to see it again in the theater to just keep the ball rolling, because to me this is an important film and I enjoyed it that much. So there you are.
Very cool. And I greatly look forward to hearing what you have to say about the script, considering that you also literally read the script for it. So I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And we have a few super chats. We have some classic ones that we haven't gotten through yet on Dune. We'll get to them momentarily. But here's one I can bring up on screen. Stargate 404 says, also, if Part 2 is greenlit tomorrow, hypothetically, since unlike Part 2, or Lord of the Rings Part 2 isn't in production, are we looking at waiting 2 years for Part 2? That's a good question. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that on Monday they come out and they say that, yeah, we're doing Part 2. How long are we going to have to wait to see it?
3 years.
Yeah, 3, yeah.
Yeah. That's
because the next section of the book is far more dense and more action heavy than at least from the script that I read from the first half. So it's going to have a lot more stuff to do, especially considering Denis Villeneuve's directing style and his requirement for practical effects and in-camera effects.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I'm not kidding when I said, and I think you'll agree, script, the pacing is going to pick up frenetically. I mean, it's going to get fast. So,
I sincerely hope so. I mean, Denis does like to take his time.
He does that. He found a way, because here's like the thing, that the people that say that it's too long, honestly, if you had someone other than Denis Villeneuve going through doing an extra edit of it, they could easily take out 40 minutes of Denis Villeneuve being the Denis Villeneuve and lose nothing of the story.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about, because when I read the script, I'm like, this is either a solid 2 hours or a really good, well-paced, like hour 45, hour 50.
That's exactly right. It's an hour 45 to 2 hour movie that's extended to 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I still, and again, I still didn't mind that because I felt like there was it added weight to what's going to happen in the second film.
That
So
they did. That they
yeah.
did. It added weight, and I thought that they were able to be just the right side of pretentiousness. Only barely, but they did not tip over that pretentiousness cliff. Others may disagree, but I thought so. Before we move on from Dune, let's hear what you guys have to say. Trots said for £2, Dune was quality. The voice gave me chills in IMAX.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question about that because I've also saw the movie in IMAX, and I also thought it was a fantastic experience. Although the audio was kind of on the loud side. I kind of was like, "Where's the remote? I need to turn this down a couple of notches." But it's obviously a movie that is made to be seen in IMAX. It is not made to be seen in your home theater, no matter how good it is. It is certainly not made to be seen on your regular living room TV. It's definitely not made to be seen on a tablet, and it's certainly not made to be seen on your mobile. Yet that is where a ton of people are going to be seeing it. And I remember because this struck me when I spoke to him, our good friend, filmmaker Gary J. Tunnicliffe. He said that when filming Hellraiser Judgment, he knew that this movie was never going to be in theaters, and even if it was, outside of that brief initial run, it's going to live its secondary and eternal life in home media. So he staged the whole movie for that end, so everything would be nice and clean to watch on a mobile screen. Villeneuve obviously didn't do that. It's coming straight to HBO Max, meaning probably the majority of people seeing it won't be seeing it the way that it was intended in IMAX. Do you think this is going to hurt the movie? Culture or script?
Yeah, culture is. I'll be back in a moment. I don't. Yeah, I've always been a little adverse to when I see or hear from directors saying that we're shooting this strictly for a big screen because that's not where movies live. That's the theatrical release is the grandiose birth, the introduction of the film. It lives, it grows, it develops, it creates a fan base on home media. So you have to have a good balance between what is designed for the cinema and what is designed for at home. And because television screens and people are getting projectors, those two divides are getting closer and closer together. You can have a little bit more fun with that. But it's very foolish to just say this can only be seen on a theatrical screen because you're then killing the ability for you to grow your audience because they will see it on a television screen and they will not see the fine details of the thopters flying over the vast space of Dune because the thopters will literally be the size of mosquitoes on that giant, grandiose landscape, in which case you lose the very spectacle as a director you were trying to convey with your growing audience.
Yeah.
And Spielberg was great at figuring out a way to reconcile that. Like you look at any of his films from the 70s and 80s, they are perfectly balanced for screen and for television.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he knows because he got to start in television. So yeah.
Yeah, and culture. I'm sure that, like me, you noticed like how huge the movie was.
Oh, it was
Exactly as script said. Like the ornithopters, like we need to build those in reality.
Yeah.
But it's true. On a regular movie screen, they're going to look like mosquitoes.
Yeah, well, they're going to look smaller. There's no doubt about it. But and again, as Script was saying, I mean, you are seeing larger format televisions, projectors, and stuff like that. But no, it was on a grand scale. It was truly an epic. I know that word gets used way too often, but this is of epic scale, and the presentation of it, on the biggest screen possible, really does add to the film. I like I said, I mean, of course we knew this going in, and Script is right. I mean, you aren't going to be able to appreciate how big the film is, seeing it on the television as you would, on an IMAX screen.
And there's tricks to get around that. Like for instance, like that little spot I talked about, the ornithopters flying over Dune, where you can on an IMAX screen, I assume you could see everything clearly and totally appreciate the vastness of it. But for a director that knows where this is going to live, they would start as like on a medium shot where you see the ornithopter, and then they would pull out and keep pulling out until you actually saw the scope of things, so that you trick the audience in understanding how big this actually is without muting that ability on different forms of media. But with Denis Villeneuve, he usually just starts with that establishing and then keeps and holds it.
Yeah, you're right. Because it is the establishment is on that big. No, you're right. If he'd started on a medium shot and pulled back or drew back to a long shot, that would have been. You're right.
And then you have a good musical score to swell up that vastness of it instead of just Hans Zimmer doing his thing. And boom, you've hit all the points you need to really hook your audience into what they're about to experience.
And I have complaints, obviously, with the audio score, but at the same time, you know what I appreciated, and I'm not sure Andre does or did or whatever, but the bagpipes, the use of the bagpipes there. I
didn't notice.
Oh man, it was so cool. I loved it. Oh, because
there's like the thing, like to me, the score, it didn't detract from the movie. I just felt it didn't add to it. It fit the imagery perfectly, but it didn't add to anything. It wasn't. I was like, whoa, this is awesome music. I'm really digging this, and I like it when that happens. When I'm for a moment taken out of the story because the music is so good, and then I get right back into it. I love that. That didn't happen here. You know what this score reminded me of? It reminded me of the score for the remake of Conan the Barbarian. It's perfectly serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know it's there. You don't think about it. You don't really notice it. It's just there.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how I feel about it. It perfectly fits the imagery, but it doesn't do anything beyond that. However, our good friends from Midnight's Edge Espanol pointed out that the music sounded like the kind of like drum music that you evidently have when you're like in like these ayahuasca circles when you get like drugged up or something. It's apparently like tunes like that.
Wow.
So it's something that's meant to put you in trance, and maybe it's successful at that.
I enjoyed it. It was it just wasn't great. And again, I mean, there were moments there I was like really like, wow, that is awesome. Again, I mean, there were just those individual moments. I thought there was a hint of a melody that played when they were man, I don't want to ruin it. When they were encapsulated in a dune, let's put it that way, and they run across one of the they're not mice. What are they called? Shoot. Anyway, there was
that disappointed me so much. I mean, because that's one of my least favorite things, like the mice there, which obviously was like set up in the scene. What shall we call you?
Yeah,
and it didn't freaking happen.
Yeah. But it was like I said, I mean, that moment, but there was a little hint of music there. And that's kind of what happens in this, I think in the scores, there's a hint like there, maybe he's building up to the second film where we'll actually have a theme, but that's the other thing. There's no common, I could not identify a common theme in the film as far as the music went. So I couldn't,
because there wasn't one. There was no leitmotif or anything like that. So it was a very off-kilter score, which is an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
But I think there are movies that are more suitable for that. They cost less than $20 million.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then going back to what you guys have to say, Far Outcast sent us $50. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And he says, what may everyone think the studio may have in contractual agreements with the current cast? This was part 1. What chance things are further down sequel way, because they can't really let people not be available for said sequel. So basically, worry about sequel and contractual agreements. A script. Is there any reason whatsoever to worry about contracts for part 2?
No. I mean, they're already signed. Whoever
exactly.
they've got for the cast we're seeing on screen that returns, they're locked in for whatever many pictures the Legendary and Denis
They're
Villeneuve
locked in for at least
had
3
planned.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as for the next set of cast, that's going to be negotiated, and that's going to be based on scheduling, availability, and whatnot, which is par for the course for the studio system. So I'm not concerned at all.
Yeah, it's a part and part, and they'll you'll see scale increase too. So
Exactly.
it's built into it.
And with the cast and availability for like shooting time, they'll work that out with the agents. They're always able to work it out. And what they're not able to work out, they're able to trick you into thinking they've worked out. Like, for instance, Avengers Endgame. They didn't get all the cast at all the same time, but you don't know that watching the movie. It looks like everyone is there together, but they really weren't. So, yeah, don't worry about that at all. And Daniel says for $10, I bought 2 sets of tickets for IMAX this week. I love the unique weirdness and music of Lynch's Dune. I'm actually a little lukewarm on this and can't stand Zendaya, but still want this to succeed. Yeah, that's a very fair opinion. Can't fault you for that in the slightest.
Yep.
I also have, I love David Lynch's Dune, and this new movie, while I like it and I want it to succeed, it has not yet replaced David Lynch's Dune as my go-to Dune. Hasn't happened yet. And Peter Smigelski says, having movie take pauses and building character is so antithetical to movies now that when it does happen, it comes across as dragging. Yeah, that's a good point. Audiences have lost all sense of patience. Exactly, patience. Well, it's like, it's dragged for 5 minutes. Oh, complain. Bring out the scissor. Try watching a movie from the 60s.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I mean, and this is the problem now with the Marvel formula, right? It's just it's just this racing train the entire time. It doesn't ever really take a breath, and when it does, that gives you the 45 seconds to 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. That's about it.
On top of that, the breathtaking is usually a grinding halt to the story, so it's not even done organically, so to speak. It's like one of the things that I really loved about the classic films, even when you're getting into like the 40s and 60s and 70s and stuff, is that sometimes they feel kind of slow paced, but then it's over and you're like, oh wait, I've got all the information I need. Everything kind of happened and wrapped up, and I had the motive and the understanding of what all the characters were going through. And if you want to see something that on a superficial level looks like it's slow paced but is actually moving really, really well, there's no better example than John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, that's how it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have a couple of classic ones I can't bring up on screen when I want to run through the classic Dune ones before we move on to the next topic. The Norwegian Blue says for €5. So glad to be able to support this channel and grateful to all the other who also do so. This is how we create the change we want to see in this industry. Yes, indeed. Yes, and thank you all for supporting us. Hypergiver 2 says for $5. So Dune underperformed with 40.1 million opener. Yet Sun Tea and Bland Window is a triumph with their 22 million to 30 million openers. I call BS. Yeah, that is a good point, and you should call BS because they're not triumphs either. That's the thing. Financially, very few things have been triumphs outside of, I don't know, Venom. That was genuinely a box office triumph. And also, James Bond was off to a really, really good start internationally. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, there's very few triumphs to speak of in the box office right now.
Yeah. Halloween Kills is kind of okay for what it's doing right now.
That's doing pretty decent too. That's also doing pretty decent. Although lots of money was left on the table because of Peacock. And then Ty Remmer says for $4.99, I enjoyed Dune. Score could have been better. Fun game. Anytime Zendaya is on screen, pause and ask yourself what emotion she's trying to convey. Good thing in this time she didn't have the score to help her convey the emotion. That's actually a really, really good point.
Yeah, she did nothing to improve my opinion of her acting ability in this film.
Have we confirmed that she's not an automaton?
No.
No, we have not. The rumor still, or the jury is still out on that one. And then we have David Little saying, decent movie, was not woke. But yeah, the fact it was already released on HBO Max didn't do any favors. And Nova Zero says for $10 Australian, it would have been nice to watch it with you at roughly the same time, then sell it to China. Show those fools that they're missing out. Is there any wonder that the high seas still operate? Yeah, I think that I can't remember a single big release being botched as badly as this one. I really have to say. And Organic Vistas says for $4.99, my wife and I loved Dune. Epic, understandable, and left you wanting for more. They must move forward. Will only grow. Director has a great eye. STR Red Wolf says for $5, it should have been opened 6 weeks ago for the 45 exclusive window. Get all the money. Indeed, it should have. Dash Attack says for $5, I don't underestimate the Marvel brand and fanboy devotion, but could Dune outgross Marvel's biggest film this year? Would be very interesting. And I would say no way in hell can Dune outgross anything Marvel this year. Guys, what say you?
Well, you got Spider-Man No Way Home this year, right? So that's going to be...
Yeah, you do.
That's going to be $1 billion.
Yeah. Ain't no way it's outgrossing that. And then let's see if I can bring back to where we can bring things up on screen again. Just not quite yet, no. And then we have Trots, who says Dune was quality. The voice gave me chills in IMAX. Yeah, we actually got that one. Stargate 404 said for $5. In these cases where the film underperforms, but above expectations, does audience play a part? Critic plus audience plus reception seems great, plus word of mouth. And yeah, word of mouth absolutely does play a part. So we'll see how it continues to perform. If loads of people tell everyone, go see this in IMAX, that's going to help the box office numbers, or it's certainly going to slow the decline. That is for certain. And then back to where we can bring up on screen. Daryl Brewer says, morning everyone. Do you think AT&T would step in if WB doesn't like they did with the Snyder Cut? And I think that at this point, Dune pretty much is an AT&T HBO Max thing anyway.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Pretty much the reason, I think the whole reason they're looking at the HBO Max numbers is because of AT&T, because they double dip on HBO Max. They're a service provider and they own HBO Max. So if you pay for internet and you connect to HBO Max and you pay for that, you're paying them twice. So they're really happy about that.
Yeah, and Comcast is as well, by the way, with Peacock and their own delivery system.
Yeah, again, Peacock has got like the best model. It's just the catalog is a little weak.
Exactly. And the young Yoda says, it looks like an excellent film. Having read the book and watched the original makes me excited. Oh, cool. Very cool. And then just a couple of more before we run through to the next topic here. Let's see. We got this one. We got this one. Pew Pirate says for $10. Not to steer the subject, but I have to say thank you, Andre, for speaking so respectfully Friday on what can be a touchy subject regarding our rights in the US. You handled it quite eloquently. Oh, thank you. And we'll get right back into that before long here. Daniel also says, I had to practically arm wrestle my friend into seeing it on IMAX, as she normally hates IMAX. IMAX is not the selling point with all people. And yeah, I can believe that. It's like 3D all over, isn't it? Sporting News Podcast. Go check out his channel and help him hit like the next threshold in subscribers. Says, I loved the soundtrack. It was at times stressful. Hard to disagree with that. And then Darius Münchhausen says, sent us a popcorn super sticker. And we do have more super chats to get through, but before we do that, let's briefly get into the next topic here. And it's not yet the accidental discharge, or how you may want to address it. No, it's actually James Bond, because now we know a little bit more about the writing contributions of one Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And I'll see if I can get that up on screen here, because I really want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So this comes to us from Bounding Into Comics. Lashana Lynch said that she and Phoebe Waller-Bridge sought to write No Time to Die's Nomi, that's like 007 Lashana, as an agent with anxiety. Oh yeah, it gets better. According to star Lashana Lynch, her role as Nomi in No Time to Die was born out of an effort by both herself and writer Phoebe Waller-Bridge to distance the character from Bond and thematically explore what an agent with anxiety can be. In a recent interview with IndieWire, Lynch recalled meeting with Waller-Bridge shortly after the actress joined the production, reminiscing to reporter Kate Erbland, I thought, great. Female writer, tick. The writer of Fleabag, sure, I'm sold. Don't worry about it, I'm in. And then they go about talking and says, this is where I want her to be. She's got so much potential, and I think she should be kind of awkward, but really realistic. And I want young people to be relating to her in the way that I haven't had the opportunity to do before. What do you think? And she just said, yep, that's where I'm at too. Agree. I think we should write that. So basically, they wrote her with anxiety, someone who is nervous and will freeze up and
apprehensive,
apprehensive, and then feel really good afterwards when she's able to not mess up completely afterwards. So, a special agent with a license to kill with anxiety. And this is somehow supposed to be empowering to young people with anxiety so that they can see that they can also be like James Bond and become special agents with license to kill, even if they're nervous wrecks.
They're conflating anxiety with alcoholism. Like, Bond drinks to suppress his demons. Anxiety is not a flaw that allows you to function in a world where you have a license to kill, where life is indifferent to you when it comes to getting the job done. If anything, like, even anxiety in the military has to be addressed with vigorously, because if you have a soldier or someone serving that is not at their best, it means lives would be lost, and not the ones that they want lost, like the enemy. It's themselves. So yeah, that would be considered a negligent act to put her in such a position.
I think this all comes down to the problem that I have with almost everything right now, and that is, merit. You get into these jobs because you're qualified for them. Having anxiety, as Script just said, wouldn't make you qualified to be a 00. There's no room for that in this job. There's no room for inexperience and a lack of self-confidence. And if that's what they're trying to do, I mean, then you've ultimately failed in what these people are supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be room for that in my day job. And that doesn't involve killing people. It just involves like huge monetary transactions and stuff. And even there, you have like personality tests to ensure that you don't balk under pressure.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, again, it's a very prevalent job. There's very, like, the Bond franchise itself, even within the novel, the Ian Fleming novels and the films, we don't exactly know how many licenses to kill are authorized within MI6. There's not a solid, like, it does range sometimes. I've heard stories of, like, 0011, 0012, 0020, but, like, I'm pretty sure it's far more limited, and it's limited specifically because of the discretion needed for these agents, and also given you don't want to give them that much free reign independently of themselves unless you can trust them implicitly that they are going to get the job done and not abuse the power afforded to them. And someone with anxiety is someone who's, someone with anxiety is going to start killing people that are make them anxious, whether they're good, bad, or not. Like,
But script,
it's really a bad character trait to put for an agent. I can see interesting with regards to someone applying to be an agent, or as a contender for an agent, but they won't succeed unless they overcome that anxiety to become an agent.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is, I mean, this is a way to normalize putting people that are unqualified into positions they're not qualified for. I mean, this is happening across the board, not just in film, but this is one of those things that I'm just like, this has no place in this film or in this world that Ian Fleming built. There's no place for this. So it's frustrating, and it's continuing to happen. And
it's also really frightening on my part, like, as a writer, because you have these two people, an actor and another writer who is a successful writer, not even understanding the gravity of those types of suggestions or intentions that they're putting on to a fictional story. Like, it's like, okay, we want a spy and we want them to be anxious. All right, let's explore what that entails and how dangerous that can be. It is usually what a competent writer would do. But they're doing it mostly as a means to relate to an audience, which also is kind of patronizing the audience, saying that we know the world is full of anxious people that are pathetic. So and I'm not saying that they are, but just in this context that are. So let's make sure that we have a character that relates to them so that they can feel a little bit better about themselves in their sad lives. Like, that's the mentality I'm getting when I hear writers and directors and actors talk this way with relatability for people with issues.
That's a very, very good point. So why would they do something like this? To me, this seems like another misguided attempt at making themselves relatable.
Basically an understanding that it's actually ironic because they can't relate to people to understand what is relatable to an audience.
Isn't it also speak in a broader sense to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's issues herself? Because, I mean, you see her representing herself in her, one-man show and then eventually television show Fleabag in the same way. There are lots of insecurities and things like that, and that's perfectly fine. But maybe this is another effort at self-insert into I could be in this world. I'm qualified, even though I have all these problems. I don't know.
Here's the thing, like, if you're qualified and you have all these problems, your story is getting over those problems so that your qualifications stand out. It's like, yeah, I had anxiety for several years. It took me a lot of hard work to get over that so that I can be in this position that I am. And yeah, like, if I can do it, anyone else can do it with dedication and hard work. That's actually kind of a good, positive, influential story to have, to give people with that issue hope that, it's a struggle. It's not everyone can do it, but if you try and put your mind to it, maybe you get things better than where you were before. That's a very relatable thing. That's easy to do. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge in No Time to Die, did anyone I haven't seen No Time to Die, I don't want to see No Time to Die, did anyone get that this character was anxious in the film? Did they say that?
No, okay, I didn't get it at all.
There we go. So they talk about it, they don't even execute it.
Yeah.
Just because.
So her name's Nomi. So was it like Nomi, you don't know me, or like, is that how she introduced herself? Or
you don't know me? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Anyway,
I don't know.
No, I don't know. I again, I mean, maybe they sought to do this, but they didn't actually put it into the character. They also sought to, display a woman's feminine hygiene product in a unflattering way, and that didn't make it into the film either. But hey, it is what it is.
So it could all be on the cutting room floor from all those reshoots, I suppose.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. So much money into this film, and it's just wasted. It's just wasted.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't just the money that was wasted, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. So I guess that we're not too impressed with that then. I know I'm certainly not. All right, let's run through a couple of more super chats, and then we'll get into the Alec Baldwin situation, which I'm sure many are looking forward to us taking in a little bit more on. Just have to, let's see here, which super chat I can get up here. We got this one. Vincent Beretta sent us 20 euros with no message, but thank you so much. Really appreciate the support. And then we have, let's see what more we can bring up. Peter Smigelski says, I know I watched a breakdown of The Force Awakens by this channel, Critical Drinker or Mauler, where they talked about taking pauses and not having to go from action scene to action scene, like in Force Awakens. And yeah, there have been many comments like that. I don't know exactly where that was right now, but yeah, it could have been here. Far Outcast says, for another $20. As the good doctor said, I figured that the studio has the main cast tied up. Since they had to give some money and consideration to get the cast under a possible sequel contract, does that possibly make sequel more possible? No, it doesn't. I mean, that getting a sequel clause in there, that's a standard thing. It doesn't make a sequel either more or less possible just because there's a sequel clause. That means nothing.
The sequel clause is predicated on a greenlit from the studio, and so it's up to the studio if the sequel's going to get made. A contract for a sequel is as valuable as the paper it's written on.
Yeah, exactly. And the Mexican Iron Man says, for $19.99, listening in while driving from Dallas to Houston in the great state of Texas. Saw Dune in IMAX. Holy hell, I'm glad I didn't watch this on HBO Max first. Total A+, I loved it. Well, awesome. I'm really glad to hear that you enjoyed it. Nothing is better than that. Then we have Daryl the Derelict, who says for $5, hail gentlemen, hail chat. Let's get this stream past 1K likes. Yeah, that would be awesome if we could do that. So everyone, smash that like. That would be great. So hit that like for Dune and for James Bond, and not for Lashana Lynch or whatever the case may be. And Alexander says 100 for 100 Russian rubles. KGB and later SVR have a motto: a spy must have clean hands, cool heads, and a burning heart. It's true, by the way. I would know. My dad was one. Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'm sure he could kick the ass out of both Lashana Lynch and quite a few other agents of this day. And then I'm going to go through a few more classic ones here. Actually, here's one I can bring up. Daniel says for $20, I'm horrified and offended at the violent opinions of script and culture in denying self-expression. For instance, if someone wants to declare they are a gun safety expert despite not liking guns, who are they to question? Nice one. Very droll. Very droll. So yeah, and those are the ones I can bring up on screen, but we have a few more here from behind the scenes in my own repository. So let's get into some of those. Responding to Dune, the young Yoda says for £5, it looks like an excellent film. Having read the book and watched the original makes me excited. And Then we got this one, we got this one, we got this one. Far Outcast said for another $20. And so this show is officially sponsored by Far Outcast for today. Thank you so much. And he says, to me, Zendaya seemed layered into the movie, being that she seemed that she was not quite completely there in the same way as everyone else in the non-dream scenes. Cultured, do you agree with that?
I almost can kind of see what you're saying there. It's quite possible that she's shot with a limited amount of crew around her, in specifically the rock scene that maybe you're referring to. I mean, there were times it did feel kind of odd. I can see what you're saying there. She didn't do anything to make me appreciate her as an actor in this film. I'm not saying that she was outwardly bad. I do think that script is right. There's a decent chance she's an automaton. I just don't. I mean, I've never appreciated what she's done. I've never seen her act well. But that's just that's just my opinion. Yeah, I can see what you're saying though, that it didn't feel like she was actually there. I get that. I can see that. Yeah.
But speaking of actually here, we have another guest joining us. Welcome, Sporting News Podcast. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. We saw you in the chat, so of course we'll send you a link. I think you got 2 of them, both from Culture and from myself.
I did, and I appreciate it. I think I got 3, actually.
Yeah, I sent them a link too.
Okay. Well, you know that you're welcome.
I know, it makes you feel good. Yeah, what's up?
Did you get the opportunity? Yeah, of course, you got to see Dune.
Yes.
So before we get into the Alec Baldwin thing, what did you think about Dune? You obviously liked the score, which is fine, but
yes, I did.
Also, what do you think of Zendaya? Was she layered into the movie? And give us a lowdown.
Okay, so I'm so glad she really wasn't in the movie that much. I don't know if she's plastic, and if someone taught her like squinting, like is a sign of like emotion or emoting something. But I think she was the wrong choice. You don't see like, I got to give Timothy some credit because he shows some affection towards her, but like I don't see hatred from her. I don't see love from her. I don't see she has to go to the bathroom. I don't see anything from her. And that's a sad, because with all the great actors in this, it's fantastic. I mean, it really was a great movie, start to finish. I love the pacing. You guys were talking about that before. With the pacing, which made me laugh, is like, would Taxi Driver or Godfather work today? Because people can't deal with, how slow a movie builds. I think it was a perfect. Yeah, there were some issues, but I think it was what we need in cinema right now, that pacing. We need that. We need to learn. We need to get to know our characters a little bit. I think they left out some important stuff like relationship wise between people. But hopefully they'll touch on that in the second film.
Okay, I'm curious, which relationships did you think they didn't explore? I'm just curious because I thought they did a really good job with all of that. And again, it made me appreciate Miss Ferguson's acting as the mother.
That was one of my only things. You only get that last few seconds of her and Duke Leto's like feelings towards one another. She's a very important character. She is his top concubine. You don't really get that he has other concubines. Like, you don't understand that part of the world. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
I see, but I don't think that I don't think that was necessary to the story, even in the way Frank Herbert put it together. So,
I felt like it was more well done in the original. That's all. I felt like you understood that she was not his wife, but in ways she had more power than most wives do. I don't know. That's what I got it. But I think she was great though.
In that scene before what happens after that, I honestly thought that that his line, and I don't know, Scripty, if you remember it, where he says, "I should have married you."
That was powerful.
I thought that was an incredible moment, that performance. Yes. And again, I mean, Oscar Isaac is a good actor. I mean, he is.
Fantastic in this.
Yeah. And so, and like, those moments there, that again, this is all about weight, right? So that's why when people are like talking about the slow pacing, I'm like, everything there, everything that may have felt like it was dragging was adding to the weight of what's about to happen. Look, if the second film gets made, it's a race car.
Yes.
I mean, you guys don't even understand.
Right. And that's, I think you put it perfectly too. It's one of those movies, like, whatever happened to patience? Whatever happened to learn like dialogue and enjoying what you're getting? I mean, we were engrossed in a world that I feel like was presented to me for the first time. Yes, I love Lynch's version, but like, you know, what I said on other streams is this is the first film since Fellowship of the Rings that the minute I was done with it, I was like, I need part 2. I need it. Because it's been so long for that. And we got a good father figure. We got a great father figure. That line where he says, you know, even if you decide not to take this ring, you're already more than I already, you know, needed. I'm paraphrasing, but like that moment where he says, no matter what you become, you're already enough for me, son. I literally got chills from that moment. I'm like, oh my God, not a deadbeat dad. Yeah. Score 1 for us.
Well, not only that, like, again, the line that you talk about where he says, I should have married you, that has way more meaning in the world of Dune than people understand, because the culture for a person in his position is the marriages are done on a social as a social relationship for power, kind of like in, you know, marrying families together to create larger houses. And in saying that, he's basically saying, I would sacrifice that status, all of that, to just be with you. And that's actually what ended up being the case. Like he was married. It was a marriage in name only because he had no children with the other wife. Right. Barely saw her, barely interacted with her. It was all Lady Jessica because that's what they had together. That was the bond.
But did you get that? Like, if you never saw Dune before that, did you understand the gravitas of that moment? I understood the gravitas that he should have married or not, but it was almost like I'm sorry, my daughter's singing. That I should have made you my wife. Not that like this was a social thing. Like I should have followed my heart because there was better matches for me. Like, I just think they could have gone into that a little bit more.
Well, marriage in the Dune world is normal within the people that are not of a house, right? You marry for love and the normal stuff. But when you're part of that social tier, marriage is not it's a contract. It's purely a contract. Yes. But here, what we have is we understand what Duke Leto is that he's a man of the people that he presides over understand and like him. He understands them. So when he is saying that line, he is basically acknowledging, like, I'm still, like, this position is just a position. It's not who I am. I am of these people. And that's how I view what marriage is as they do. And that's why he would, I mean, that, again, that's a big, interesting character point to put for someone in such a position where you would think, given the politics of the Dune universe, a person in that position would disregard it, just like as the Emperor does and as Harkonnen does and all the other families. Like, they don't, they see themselves as too good to believe in love.
Right. But did you get all of that from, like, all I'm saying, this is nitpicking because that's how good this movie was. It's literally nitpicking on my part. I felt like that we didn't get and I'm hoping in the second one we'll get more from the other houses, more involvement, because first of all, the Baron Skarsgård killed it. Like, I wanted so much more of him, and I can't wait to see him once we get a second part.
I think Stellan did a great job too. I actually said that just a few moments ago before you got here. But I look, in as much as, you know, all of that makes sense in the politics of the book and everything else. You know, this was done by the Bene Gesserit and by Leto himself. They intentionally put made Paul. Paul was a product of a grand plan or scheme or whatever, not divine necessarily, but he ends up being a divinity figure. You know, and we'll see, you know, obviously a great deal more in the second film about that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'd love to see Leto 2 God Emperor as like a show, you know, similar to Game of Thrones, something. There's a lot of this that they can do. And I do think the Bene Gesserit series is going to get made. I mean, Go
not
ahead.
with the current showrunner. I think she's going to be finding
Maybe.
different work somewhere soon enough, and they'll have to get another showrunner that really appreciates and understands the gravity of Dune. It might be Spates. He might, once he finishes the sequels, he might jump back into developing the show again, which would be great. I think.
Can I ask you guys a quick question?
Sure.
Shoot.
Do you think what this movie can do, part 1 and 2, is what Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings, bringing people outside of the fandom, like becoming massive fans? Because I remember people that never even heard of Tolkien, which to me always blew my mind, but became, enthralled into that universe. I feel like this movie has that chance if, like you said, Culture, part 2 is like just a speed drag race, like just powerful, because we need that in our fandoms. We need that. We only get that every couple decades, it feels like. So we really need something like that. Do you guys believe that could happen with Dune?
If I may, I think it absolutely can happen, but not at the same scale as it did with the Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. I think that Tolkien and Lord of the Rings is a hell of a lot more accessible to far more people than Frank Herbert and Dune. So yes, I think it will happen, but on a smaller scale. It's my thoughts on that. Cultured.
Oh no, I think this is the epic this very possibly could be an epic that is maybe not Lord of the Rings, but close. I think it's going to be like, I think it could be. And again, I mean, it is, as I said before, it is wide open for other series to be done about it, even other films around Frank Herbert's work. There's a lot there. I mean, how many books? It's like
well, there's like 6 or 7 original Frank Herbert books,
Right.
but then you have the extended universe.
Yeah, with his son,
with the son and Kevin J. Anderson,
Yeah.
and I don't even know how many books there are there. I mean, they're still being written. They came out like a new one like a month ago.
Oh, so they admit to an extended universe? That's awesome to hear.
Well, it's still owned by the Herbert estate, as far as I understand.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. And that's actually the thing that I thought was like disappointing in the movie is that in the script it perfectly set up the Butlerian Jihad, explained the backstory, and it even referenced the events from those books.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't in the movie. I was a little bit disappointed by that.
Yeah, did you guys also, that's another thing that bothered me, again, nitpicking, the worlds. Like, where were the people? The first half, the home planet of the Atreides, like, you saw the military, you saw massive, palaces with barely anybody in it. Like,
you saw the west coast of Norway. I mean,
it was gorgeous. Gorgeous. I got to come and visit. But like, you didn't see, I want to see more of the people. You got a little bit of that when they got to the world of Dune, but I feel like you don't get a little bit of that. Like, what's the culture more of? And I know people are like, oh, the Fremen, will learn more about them, but what about other cultures that live in the cities and things like that? I wanted to dive more into that too. I wanted to at least see it.
I think that the reason we don't get that type of stuff is because of the position of the family we're following. It's not like Luke Skywalker, who's just a farm boy who goes through the regular world that we see. We have basically an aristocratic take on this universe. So yeah, we're not seeing much of the people of the village and stuff. That comes much later in the Dune series, actually.
Right.
So yeah, you're not supposed to. It's not intended to see that prior. Things happen without spoiling Dune as a story overall. Things happen where you start to understand and see the different caste systems and tiers and different ways people live on different planets throughout the Dune universe. So that's something that you're slowly being introduced to in Frank Herbert's work.
Right. Again, awesome movie. Didn't want to make sure people out there understand. I really did. I've watched it 3 times. I really enjoyed it. Like, I love this.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm so happy.
Jeez,
that people are enjoying it.
Almost 8 hours of Dune.
I feed baby, the kid, a lot. I just sit there, feed him like at 3:00 in the morning. I'm like, I'll throw on Dune again. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Brilliant timing then.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good timing.
Oh man.
Yeah. really is.
That kid's first phrase is going to be "Fear is the mind killer."
Yeah, I hope. I will videotape that if that is that. That would be awesome. He'll be the next Messiah.
That would be such a vital moment.
Yeah, it really would. It really would.
Baby's first words: the entirety of the litany of fear.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
He would be so much cooler than me.
Wow.
Well, that's when you know you succeeded as a parent, right?
Yeah, right.
Nice. Oh, I see we have Nina in the chat here. She wonders, did you finally finish it, Cultured?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, no, yeah. And in fact, I on the HBO Max side, I am headed into view number 2, so I'm well into that. That's the thing, is this is one of those that I can look. It has been a long time since I've been able to rewatch a film and enjoy it equally. You know what I mean? There isn't a lot, not a lot's being made that you can rewatch and enjoy and catch different elements of, or nuance or whatever. And this is, I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, this is one of those films that does do that, and it has been ruined for some people in the theaters because of bad sound equipment and things like that. I've heard people complain that in their IMAX theater, the sound was just muddy.
Or too loud, and then it becomes muddy.
Yeah. And
is that the individual IMAX, or is that the IMAX experience for most?
No, that's the individual one.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That's in the theaters. Yeah, it's the individual theaters that are experiencing these issues because they're not up to snuff to handle what's happening. Because IMAX has been in multiple different audio releases and everything else, and different theaters are equipped differently with their audio equipment and even their projection equipment. So you end up with variance depending upon how the theater is set up. But this thing was shot at the most technologically high level, so they were anticipating that these theaters would be ready for it, and some of them just aren't. So,
Yeah.
But yeah.
And with that, let's catch up on a couple of these super chats, and then let's move on to the next topic of today, namely Alec Baldwin and the most recent revelations to come out of that. But first, some classic super chats. Vincenzo Beretta says for €20, excluding the Emperor, the Navigator's Guild, the Navigator's Folding Space, Fade, a better soundtrack, better worms, a scarier Baron, and an ending. What Lynch's movie had more than this version?
Wait a minute, did he say there was a
movie? Okay, I'll read it. I'll copy it, and I'll put it in the chat here so everyone can read from Vincenzo Beretta. So the credit here is from Vincenzo Beretta. I'm going to put it here so we can put it up on screen.
Yeah.
This is the €20 super chat from Vincenzo Beretta, and this is copied. I can no longer bring it up, but he said, excluding the Emperor, the Navigator's Guild, the Navigator's Folding Space, Fade, a better soundtrack, better worms, a scarier Baron, and an ending. What Lynch's movie had more than this version? Oh, what more did Lynch's movie had that this version didn't? In addition to, so basically what he's saying is that the Lynch movie had the Emperor, it had the Guild, it had the Navigator's Folding Space, it had Fade, it had a better soundtrack, it had better worms, it had a scarier Baron, and an ending. What else did the Lynch movie had that this one didn't have?
Well, I can't imagine a scarier Baron. I think something is lost in this translation, because I understand the first half, but the Baron in this one, I mean, he was on scene for even a shorter, like Zendaya, and I felt that power. I felt that just disconnect with humanity. It was all about his power, his money. The other one was a floating, like, zit popping, like, kind of little, feminine at times guy.
A little silly. Yeah.
A little silly, yeah.
Erik Runge Madsen, he helps out saying that the Lynch's movie had more cat milking. But it did. It also had more cow tongue eating. And it had, like, generally more disgusting Harkonnens.
I mean, and I was also going to say, I liked the shields in Lynch's Dune, with the blocking shields, right? Because they were kind of blocked out rather than the shields that we saw in this one. But that's just me. That's an aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the shields on this one way better. But I understand why you liked it, because I dug it too back in the day. Yeah. I do say that the ending, this movie just kind of ended. Some people felt strongly about how it just ended. I thought it was a good way to like leave us kind of hanging. But I don't know. The worms I thought were better in this one.
Yeah, the only thing that I didn't like about the ending in this one, I agree it was a good place to end it, but I would have liked to have gotten the payoff for all the mouse that were running around in the desert, and we didn't get the payoff for them. That was like,
yeah.
But it's too late in the next film. It needed to be paid off in this film.
I know.
Yeah, because that would have been a good way to end it, because it's set up. So you ended on a cliffhanger of like, oh, I'm taking this name. And then it's up to the audience to recall, like, oh yeah, this is going in a way different direction.
Well, and I mean, there's a reveal of the atmospheric adjustment that could be made. I'm being very careful, trying not to spoil it for people who are normies and haven't seen it yet. But that didn't pay off either. I mean, there's a lot of not paying off in some of this stuff, but at the same time, I see that's all gonna reap a reward. The way the story was told. I mean, we've talked about this maybe on other places, but with the flashbacks, the flash forwards, the visions. I mean, it's telling a story around some of these things, and it's not relying on flashbacks as part of the story. It's not not relying on the flash forwards for part of the story. Any of those things, right? And there's one moment where a character is in a vision, talking to Paul, and then he finally meets that thing, and not what you thought was going to happen.
I love that.
And so it is, and there is so much stuff here, and I'm absolutely not going to do spoilers, but
no,
right up until the end of the film, and obviously, what begins the actual journey, from that point forward. And again, that I do believe the next film, and I'm starting to be more positive about it getting made.
Same.
You're going to not be able to keep pace with it. I mean, there will be no pacing complaints. There are only a couple spots where it's going to slow down, at least in the story. I don't know, script. You think I'm accurately characterizing it, or no?
I don't have anything. Nothing. There's no red flags in what you're saying with me, so I think you're okay.
Okay. All right, yeah, because I can't recall that other than a couple of slow points, there really aren't very many slow points in the next part of the story. So I'm excited, and I want the sequel pretty badly, and I don't
recall any slow points in the second half. And what would be the second half of this? Because I'm thinking like, it's kind of, you hit the ground running.
Yeah. So we'll see. And like I said, I mean, there were payoffs around a lot of things that are introduced in casual conversation. Many elements of desert survival and stuff are talked about early in the film. You're being introduced to these concepts, and then you get to see them in practical effect. So all over the place. I thought this film was really well done. But Denis is a grandiose storyteller. So his flourishes are definitely present in the film. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely, it is. With that, let's do a couple of super chats here. Her couple I can bring up on screen. Droid Army says for $5, maybe I'm reaching here, but do you think Dune isn't doing well in China due to its parallels between the Fremen and Arabic cultures?
Wow. That's a great geopolitical take. Possibly. I'm not going to cast aspersions on an entire country. They have a difficulty with diversity in China, and they have particular issues with certain parties. So that's quite possible. I don't know, Script, what do you think?
That's something I'm gonna have to ponder for a bit, because that's not something I thought of reflexively with that market. So,
Yeah. Sport King, you have any thoughts on that?
I think he stepped away for a moment.
Okay, yeah. And as
Dad
for me,
duties.
that's a really interesting observation.
Mhm.
I would think there's other reason, but it very well could be a factor into it. Absolutely could. And then Bowl Giant says for $5, I'm a normie. I knew very little going in, and I thought Dune was fantastic. I did not have a hard time following the story. Want to see it again. All
Awesome.
right. Very cool. Glad to hear it. Because that was like always the question, who will be able to follow this and who won't? And Pablo Papano says for $5, all of the director's films are slow and kind of cold, like Kubrick. Indeed they are.
Wow, except that, man, go back and watch 2001 and, for as cold and slow that
And I love it. I love cold and slow.
Ooh. I'm sorry, almost every single thing. And no, I'm not even going to, there's no qualifiers. Everything that he made was amazing. Sorry. I'm just, Kubrick was a master story.
And the only
My favorite
thing
is Doctor Strangelove. That's my Kubrick.
Yeah, that's a masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. And yeah, I agree. The only thing that Kubrick made that wasn't that amazing, Steven Spielberg made for him.
Yeah.
And then going to a couple of classic more super chats before we get into the Alec Baldwin situation. Felicity Poubelle says for $5, visuals and acting in Dune were great. Accessibility is the huge issue for me. Dune was a beautiful painting, but not one I could see myself in. And Comrade Roof Korean the Based says for $5, Zendaya landing a role in Dune seems like landing the role in Star Wars that Brie Larson always wanted. Zendaya was very MJ with her treatment towards Paul. Yeah, I saw many similarities there. And Peter Noble says for £5, Paul's parents' casting didn't work for me. 2000 miniseries was better than this film. Well, you can make an argument about the script, but beyond that, yeah, well, as long as you like it, that's the most important thing. John Cream says for $5, what happened to patience? Social media. People growing up nowadays are used to 10-second TikToks and 100-character tweets.
Yeah.
Very true.
So true.
And Brightest Day wonders, shouldn't you be at work, Scott?
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
We work together. That is one of my favorite things about this fellowship is that I didn't even know who he was. And then recently, like in the last week, like I've known who he was because he's a member and he's been in all the chats and we've been goofing around and talking. And I've come to find out we work at the same company.
Oh,
He found me through.
Cool.
He found me through this guy next to me. Isn't that crazy? What a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Yeah.
And Justin Doyle says for £20, tragic limerick time. The once was a spy called James Bond. Of the ladies he was particularly fond, but his charming was through when they shouted "Me too," and now he's left playing with his Walter PPK.
That is amazing.
That was beautiful. Yeah. Sean Carter says for $5. The problem with self-inserts these days is that the characters don't overcome their flaws. Instead, the flaws are made to be okay.
We call that Arrested Development.
Yeah. And then Brett Cohen says, agent with anxiety wouldn't pass the psych eval.
Nope.
And Scott, how excited are you for the idea of 007 with anxiety? Because that's what 007 Lashana Lynch had.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like I can understand after maybe 1,000 murders, maybe your hands shake a little bit. But come on, like that is outrageous. I'm sorry, I'll turn off my, it just popped on. But this is what I don't get. These people want reality in every movie now. This is James Bond. He is supposed to be the lady killing, smooth talking, drinking spy who we don't want. You don't even have to like want to be him, but you want to, like, there's a desire within you, like, that is cool. Like a 00, I'd rather have him nuts like a psychopath than anxiety. Like, your 00 is supposed to be able to get it done, and if they're having a panic attack and need a quiet space, something went wrong.
Although I think that'd be
agree
a
with
great spy thriller to have, is that, some type of diversity and inclusion spy agency that gets horribly like eviscerated by opposing governments and they just don't know why they can't succeed.
Actually, yeah, that sounds like a great story. Let's put that together. Script.
Yeah.
I'll line up a sound stage, and we'll get to building sets. I think.
Yeah, I'll play that spy, because he has to be overweight. Check. Has to have social anxiety, because you can't have a spy that can infiltrate anything. He has to be nervous and scared, like these people.
And he has to identify as another gender.
Yeah, yes. Of course. Come on.
Of course.
That goes unsaid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or he has to like identify as tree sap. How about that?
Ooh.
Yeah, that'll also work.
So sad.
That'll also work. And then we're almost caught up here to where we can move into the next topic. Then we have deleted scenes, who says for $2, don't give children guns in real life or real life. So, yeah, absolutely. And then we have a couple of member chats that luckily someone were able to grab and put behind the scenes here. I say luckily, because there's an issue with the member chats. Like YouTube, they have launched them without having fully implemented them, because we don't have a repository for them.
Right.
And in the software we use, we don't get them, period.
Right.
So I'm sure there are some member chats that we lost along the way, for which all I can say is I'm so sorry. And I would like to fix it, but the technology has to come from elsewhere. Like YouTube has to address that. And so incidentally does StreamYard. They haven't done so yet, either of them. But we did catch a couple, because we have Willie Woodward, who says for script, why don't productions use those ballistic walls as seen on Mythbusters when filming shots where rounds are used, if it's so dangerous?
They only use ballistic walls for explosions because you're not allowed to have live ammunition on a studio production. Doesn't matter what you're doing. On top of that, with regards to Rust, that is an independent film, and in some cases, independent films take shortcuts, and that can cause tragedies. So there's that as well.
I thought the studio rules got put in place like less than 20 years ago as far as live ammo.
Well, I knew in Canada, if you're filming in Canada, you can't have live ammunition. Various states that you're filming in, you cannot have live ammunition, and that's been going back since the 60s.
Right. Yeah. I just
some states you can, but it's very dangerous because, and I'll put this to everyone listening here and watching later on. An actor is not really an emotionally stable person. So in what context would you ever want to give them a weapon with live ammunition?
Huh.
And here's the thing. The studio system has known this for a long time, and that's why it's prohibited from being on set. There are some stories where people have snuck in live ammunition because they want to, bend the rules or show how cool they are or something of that nature. And they get heavily disciplined as a result of that. But yeah, you have to understand that actors, they can get lost in scenes. Mm-hmm. And if you have an actor that gets lost in scene with a firearm that has live ammunition for whatever reason the director thinks or the production thinks is smart, that's not ever going to go well. Let's go more recently. Leonardo DiCaprio cut his hand in Django Unchained, and he got so invested in that scene and he did what he did. You do not want to have actors as professional or as committed or as good as someone like Leonardo DiCaprio anywhere near something that could do harm to someone else. And here's the other part too, that the glass that they had in there was not a prop, like a breakaway glass or a prop glass. I mean, it is a prop glass because prop is an abbreviation for property, means it's owned by the production, not to be conflated with fake. That's different. Those are usually like those usually have the prefix of stunt. So you have the stunt gun, stunt sword, stunt glass, stunt table, stunt chair, all those things. So yeah, you don't want to do that. And as I was talking to Andre backstage before the show, doesn't matter what type of weapon it is. If an actor is checking it of their own accord outside of the supervision of the wrangler or property master or assistant or armorer of that weapon, the person in question has to assume that the actor has either deliberately or inadvertently tampered with that object, and it has to be taken away from them and re-inspected and rechecked with witnesses in order to ensure safety is being ensure everything is being safe on set. Otherwise, they could lose insurance.
Exactly. So, to summarize, then, it is not for the actor to, before they fire anything on a movie set, to actually open up the gun and inspect the bullets in them. If they do so, they are in violation of the rules. That gun cannot be used. It has to be re-inspected by the armorer. So the proper conduct then on a movie set like this is that the actor is to be handed the gun, to be informed of whether it's live or cold, and then trust that. That is the proper way of doing things, yes?
I'm
to a
glad
degree.
you said
In fact,
that.
they actually have to witness the armorer dismantling, showing how the gun functions, showing what's in the gun, if there's like a blank or like a paintball projector round or like a quarter load or a 1/16th load, whatever special effects device is in there. The actor, the director, the cinematographer, almost all the crew has to be present during a demonstration of that weapon, because most of the time, the weapons, each individual weapon has its own private case, and it's under lock and key, and it's on like either a dolly or a movable cabinet or something of that nature. There are logs taken. Most weapons are supposed to be modified so that they cannot do harm. And when they are so if they take a real gun and they modify it so it can't fire any rounds, they have to imprint a secondary serial number on that, register it with what modification was done, who modified it, what the modification entails with the functionality of the weapon. So like there's lots of checks and balances put in place, and the reason we know that they are in place and they're used is because we can count on one hand how many incidents we've had with firearms that have resulted in death. And that's I mean, it's tragic for those instances, but it's very good track record to show how committed to safety these people are when it comes to this.
And people need to also remember, like, look, I personally can't stand the man Alec Baldwin. Okay, I separate the art, and as an actor, there's times he makes me laugh so hard, but I can't stand the man. But that doesn't mean like now I attack him because he did what every other actor does. They're handed the weapon, you know, they go through. Now, if we find out later these things weren't followed, which we're hearing here and there, that a lot of safety issues were being brought up as a producer, right? Because he was a producer on this. He could be
I don't
liable,
know how
but as an actor, no.
That is, I would say that he has more responsibility, much more responsibility as the producer than he does as an actor, because as an actor it could have been any single one. But we'll get into it, because I want to hear all your objections there, Script. But before then, we have now learned more of exactly what transpired. Culture, I trust that you are reasonably up to speed on events. Would you care to go through them for the audience?
Well, actually, I hope do we have a story up that we can reference, because there have been a lot of things that have been released, such as the level of experience of the armorer. They are casting doubt upon the assistant director now, an AD on site. They are saying that it was a live round that was in the chamber. The investigations continue, and there's a lot of problems with how this was handled. I think as recently as this morning, apparently there had been he had already rehearsed this particular shot. And
quite literally.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's very odd, indeed. So, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of elements to it that have been changing over the last 24 hours. So, this whole thing makes me uncomfortable, Andre, and I'm sure you understand why, because this is a tragedy all around for everybody. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Alec Baldwin to her family, her young son, her husband, her father came out yesterday and said he doesn't blame Alec Baldwin for the incident. But as we know, when it comes to negligence, that he doesn't have a say. It's the law that governs this situation, and there's also going to be a civil case, I assure you.
No, this will have to be a civil case first before they can determine if there's criminal acts. Now,
Yeah.
with regards to Alec Baldwin as a producer, and this is not a defense of him,
No.
I don't know what that entails with regards to this project, because my understanding is that this is not a passion project for Alec Baldwin, which means that he probably was the other production was involved, wanted him, and in order to secure him and also secure financing, they gave him also a producer's credit, which means that he is most likely a producer in name only with a little bit of power, but maybe not the person that is actually operating and running the whole show. We have yet to get all the details on that, because again, actors are made producers in lots of things and really don't do anything there. Patrick Stewart is notorious for this, especially with the Star Trek films. He was given producer credits, but he actually had no real say in all the finer details or even any power of the production as well. It was just there so that they could give him more money. In this case here, it's an independent film. I've never heard it being spoken around town before this event either. And I don't know if it was a passion project of Alec Baldwin's and he fought for this to get it made or anything of that nature. I think it's more likely someone else worked on this and was working on this script and this production for a long time, and they managed to secure Alec Baldwin. Mm-hmm. And part of that term was he would get a top producer credit as well.
But that's where we find the issue, because even if it's just that he got it, he is named as a producer, and if he was just an actor, I would think criminal. No, but I don't care if it was just because
as a producer,
he has that credit.
No, he doesn't. That's not how it works, unfortunately.
In New Mexico,
on the kind of producer, but yeah. But again, here's like the thing that we really have to hedge with here is that more information has come out.
Yes.
None of it pretty, because information has come out about the first AD. And there has been much character assassination against that first AD. And there has come out more information about the armorer. And there has been much character assassination about that armorer.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that any of those are innocent in any way, shape, or form. But if you recall what I said on Friday, what I said then is that here it's going to be confusing, because you have a lot of people who are very, very friendly with Alec Baldwin, and they're going to do everything they can to shift blame away from him, including doing all kinds of like dirty reportages and putting out certain narrative and certain spins that will desperately try to place the blame elsewhere, like it was this person, combined with a couple of smears. And that's kind of what I get that we're seeing against this armorer. And the first AD. Like, for instance, and this is something that was out on Friday, where she was in a podcast where she's actually talked about her previous movie, where she said that she didn't feel quite ready. She was nervous about handling like the dummy rounds. She didn't say that about this production. She said it about the previous movie, and she even said, but it turned out fine. So you'd think that is something that would boost her confidence.
Yeah.
So again, there's still much we don't know here. Well, and obviously, this is a cascade of errors. This is obviously like chain of events where
Right.
there have been multiple levels of failure. So I don't think that anyone is entirely guilty of this, and no one is entirely free of guilt
Right.
either.
Yes, there are
Well, and
also
as-
6 other producers involved in the production who probably are the ones that are doing the hiring. So you have to remember that in case.
Oh,
that
Alec
is-
Baldwin's an actor. He is too big and too important to actually, worry themselves about crew at this point. He is there for financing primarily, unless this is his passion project. And even if it is his passion project, he is delegating the responsibilities of other crew to other producers.
But script, does that in the eyes of the law change anything because of it's not his passion project? Because like in New Mexico, death caused by failure to exercise due caution, can get you arrested. I mean,
He
even
will
if it's an
definitely be
accident.
responsible as part
know?
of the people that are overseeing the things, but that it comes down to, again, in the investigation, it comes down to who is the person that brought them in,
Okay.
agreed to hire them, and what relationship do they have? Because if there is some sort of, say, conflict of interest or unreliability or nepotism that led to the tragedy, that person is going to be solely responsible. However, that does not exclude the rest of the producers as well, because they didn't exercise their due diligence
True. Okay.
within their roles, right? So,
Yeah.
but here's the other part too. If the terms of the contract for Alec Baldwin was, okay, you're a producer strictly for financing reasons to get this movie financed, that absolves him of any responsibility from any of the hires, because his job is to make sure
If it's
money
worded
is there.
that way, it has to be worded that way, right? Like
And most contracts are worded
Okay.
that way.
All right, just making sure.
Specifically so that, that's because that will end up being a payout for how this is just how the film will be distributed through either
Understood.
theater or VOD or anything like that.
Especially on independent films.
Yes.
Especially on independent films. So this story was filed at 1 a.m. this morning. By this particular news organization. It says Rust director told authorities Alec Baldwin was practicing drawing his gun when the weapon discharged.
So many different stories we're getting now.
This is at least the 4th different story around this, but this is what the director told authorities.
Okay.
So from his statement, and I'll read it, the shot that killed a cinematographer on a New Mexico film set last week was fired as actor Alec Baldwin was practicing drawing his gun, according to the director who was injured in the shooting, court documents show. So that is a first-hand account of a person that was injured.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start to believe this is more likely the scenario. Joel Souza, the director of the film Rust, was shot in the shoulder, and director of photography Helena Hutchins, 42, was killed and this is I hate this word, prop gun.
It is a prop gun. Doesn't matter if it's real or fake. It's owned by the production.
Everyone
prop
everyone doesn't. The problem is prop gun is known by people. Prop isn't, like you said before, script. It means property of, correct? It's not like it's fake. And I think
That's
most
right. It's
people
not like
think
it's fake.
prop means it's fake.
A stunt gun would be fake.
There you go.
Right. Very good. Yeah. Anyway, it went off during a rehearsal at the Bonanza Creek Ranch in Santa Fe Thursday. Sousa spoke to investigators Friday, according to an affidavit. Again, this is legal document here, guys, for a search warrant released by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office on Sunday. Sousa told them that Baldwin was sitting in a pew in a church building setting, and he was practicing a cross draw, which means he's pulling from across his body. It's the only time you're going to cross draw is when you're sitting at a poker table or some similar situation. Cross draw is incredibly ineffective. It doesn't matter. That's just handgun 101. But the affidavit said the cross draw is when a shooter pulls from the weapon from the holster on the opposite side of the body from the draw hand. Sousa was looking over Hutchins' shoulder when he heard what sounded like a whip and then a loud pop. According to the affidavit, Sousa recalled Hutchins complaining about her stomach grabbing her midsection after the shot was fired, the document said. Investigators also talked with camera operator Reed Russell, who was standing next to Sousa and Hutchins at the time of the incident, the affidavit said. Russell recalled Hutchins saying she couldn't feel her legs and medics treating her as she was bleeding on the floor.
Oof.
Both Sousa and Russell acknowledged difficulties on the set that day because of a walkout from some members of the camera department over payment and housing. This is true. Due to the labor problems, Sousa said they only had one camera available to use that day, and it was not recording at the time of the incident. Again, this is completely different than other stories we'd heard that this may have been caught on camera. Obviously, it doesn't sound like it was. Sousa also confirmed that to an investigator that he heard the term cold gun on set, meaning the firearm should have been empty.
Right.
Yeah, and here is where you have like this cascade or chain of events of errors.
Yep.
Because obviously, that gun shouldn't have been loaded with
Nope.
with a real live ammo. So how did that happen? Because what I've read before is that there were 3 guns on the table placed there by the armorer, and then the reporting that I've read said that the first AD took one of those and gave to Baldwin and said cold gun. Now, does that mean that the other 2 really were cold guns? Was there one mixed in? That we don't know. So here there are still many unknowns, and it's too early to make any kind of a verdict here. I will say one thing though. On the Friday show, I speculated because a question was how the hell could 2 people be hit by 1 round? And one of the speculations that I made was that, well, it hit her in either the stomach or the chest, and then the bullet hit her spine, and it ricocheted from there into his shoulders. Given that she didn't feel her legs, which of course is horrific, that appears to be exactly what happened.
Yeah. And or it hit a piece of equipment on the way through her when that piece of equipment hit him.
That also possible. Also possible.
Yeah. So, but here's okay. So we've been told lots of stories now. These are the people involved here. According to the warrant, Sousa said 3 people had been handling the guns or firearms for scenes. They were checked by the armor and the first assistant director, and then given to the actor to use them. My question is, did any of the 3 of them look at that firearm and confirm that it was cold?
They're supposed to. Standard operating procedure.
Yeah, exactly. And, the last person in that chain of unfortunate events is the actor himself, who also should have checked the gun.
Well, the only way he can check the gun is visually by the other 2 by basically the armor doing it in front of the first AD or the director or cinematographer. And again, as we mentioned earlier, if he tries to do it himself, it is assumed that he has either deliberately or inadvertently tampered with the gun. It must be taken away, rechecked, brought back.
Yep.
There can be no room for error in those situations. And in this case here, so far from this article, we're seeing a lot of red flags on how this is.
Right. And I think that's
and
the best.
Also, even outside of this article, there are numerous red flags because this whole production was a complete shit show in terms of like routines, safety, and everything like that. And we heard that several union workers walked out on the Thursday morning only to be replaced by non-union people in the evening. And we don't know if the armorer was one of them.
Oh, God, that'd be terrible if she walked out and then got blamed for this. And here's the other thing, and this is reported from the scene. It's not in this story that they actually had been using those one of those firearms or maybe multiple of those firearms for target practice with live rounds, which is a problem.
That is a huge problem. That is, you have to go to a range for that. You cannot do that anywhere near a set.
Well, they apparently they were doing it out in the desert. This is according to reports from the crew.
That is, oh man, that is.
What was going on here, man? What was going on in this production where, I mean, it's being reported this was the 3rd misfire. Like, script, I'm just confused on the idea of live rounds in a movie. Now, I understand blanks, and I understand that these guns have firing pins, but who brings?
No, they don't actually. They have a. It's not a real firing pin in the same way. It's designed.
Okay, so how does this work then?
Well, the thing is, even with the blanks, it's not like technically live ammunition. There's blanks that are half load, quarter load,
talking
1/16 load, and it's really just to give you for the recoil and a little bit of a smoke effect. It has nothing else to do. They don't even care about muzzle flashes because those rarely are picked up by film anyways. So those are usually done digitally.
Well, what I was thinking is how it hit 2 different people was it's not an actual bullet. There was something lodged in the gun that shattered when the firing happened, shooting projectiles out. But
which could be the case, but I mean, here's the other part too: is you don't really rehearse with blanks. You actually have the weapon is completely emptied. And then what ends up happening is the armor or the wrangler of that particular gun, which should usually be a property master or someone licensed to operate firearms on a set, would be told by the director what they want the actor to do. That person would then demonstrate the actions for the director. The director would say, yes, that's what I want. And then that wrangler would then direct with the actor to repeat the exact same motion, say, this is how you hold it, this is how you draw it, this is where you raise it to, this is where you aim, this is where you squeeze the trigger, this is how you put it back. They would do that back and forth a number of times. They'd be checking the gun back and forth between the two of them all the time. Like the armor would be opening it up, showing what's inside, what's outside, how it functions, showing them like this is the blank that's going to be used in the round when we do the take. You know, you're only going to have one in here. How
doesn't it have a firing pin? How doesn't it have one if it has blanks? That's where I'm confused.
Well, the thing is, like, the charge required to activate a blank is not the same as the charge required for a bullet.
Oh, I would think it would strike.
And that's for safety procedures, because again, it's not supposed to be a projectile. It's supposed to just do a pop and then cause like a recoil there. So like there's also stoppers that they put between the hammer and the back rear of the chamber for some shots, so that you could squeeze that thing all day long and it would never hit the back of a bullet to activate the primer. Okay. And these are all standard precautions. They make wax guns. So like if you ever see a Superman show where Superman crushes a gun, that is a prop gun, usually made of wax or maybe a tin or like a putty. And that's what they use them for. Then you have various types of stun guns that are done at a distance where there's no moving parts to them. There's like solid plastic or solid rubber. Then you have airsoft guns. Then you have real guns that have all of the firing mechanisms completely removed. So the trigger, the hammer, and the slide still work, but it has nothing in there that could launch, could cause the gas reaction to launch a projectile, because that's just theirs for their own purposes. They have magazines that look like a loaded magazine that is actually an air compressor. So some of the stuff that you see in John Wick, where it looks exactly like a real cartridge that's locked into the gun. They pull it back, they prime it, and then they start shooting. It's just air compressor shots going off, and it's just air shooting out. There's nothing actually there. All the effects, the smoke, the flash, that's all done digitally. And I'm only scraping the surface. There are a lot of things going on there, but the rules that I've been taught of when I was working on productions in property for my year and a half there was that every gun that is brought to set has to be modified so it cannot fire a live round. And that is the stipulation. And I don't know if that's different in other parts of the United States, but that's what I was taught, and that's what we did when we were doing our productions.
Yeah, and to me, though, the bigger issue here isn't so much like the individual things, but rather the systemic thing, because here it was something systemic that went wrong. Very wrong. It wasn't any one individual thing, because it's obvious. Because here we have a lot of information back and forth. We're being bombarded by information, some of it very obviously with the intent of clearing Alec Baldwin of all guilt, because he has some friends in the media and stuff like that who are very determined to clear someone with as sound opinions as him. So that is part of this, but at the same time, he is obviously not one fully to blame, and neither necessarily are anyone else. There's plenty blame to go around here. But to me, it does seem like there are rules in place to prevent just this sort of thing, and on this production, those rules weren't followed.
Oh, yeah.
You know what question that leaves me with? And also on that note, greetings, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, kids. How's everybody doing? What a lovely day for the internet.
Yeah. You know what, Tom? I love you, and I thank you, Andre. I got to go. I
showed up, so he's got to leave.
I got to leave. Well, no, we can't be in the same place at the same time.
He doesn't associate with me anymore.
Unless you're on my stream.
Not since I touched his bum.
And I loved every minute of it.
And that's why we don't associate anymore, because he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Love you,
I really appreciate it. I love you guys. I need 4 more, I think, to get to 1650. I'm very petty. I'm just trying to beat somebody else, Stephen Walton, to 2000. So, yeah, it's all petty. So if we can get me to 2000 also, before him.
You know what? We have a term for that. Friendly rivalry, because you and Stephen Walton are friends of ours.
Yes, we are.
So
no, they hate each other.
I said that they're both friends of us, regardless of how
Yes.
much they may internally hate,
This is
hate
true.
each other.
That is true. That is very true. So if we can get me there before him, that would be a magical moment in my life. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I shall. We shall leave it to you.
Take
So
care, Scott.
everyone,
Thank you, sir.
go check out the Sporking News podcast and go check out Stephen Walton as well. And
Not as
then
much.
the race is on.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you very much.
Take
Hey,
care.
Scotty.
As you can
Yeah.
see, I turned into a pumpkin, so that's why I'm late.
There you go.
I heard a little bit of what you guys were talking about. My net was in and out, so I only heard like maybe total of 5 minutes of the show this morning. So I apologize if I say anything that you guys have already brought up or that has been whatever, because I've not been able to keep up with anything this morning. All I know is that all the business that was coming out this weekend and like everything else, it's like I don't know what to believe, because 9 times, if not 9.9999 times out of 10, a lot of the stuff in the press right now is not coming from any white eyewitnesses or anybody from the actual set. It's somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Yep.
And I've seen the hit pieces, but there is some red flags outside of certain things. And again, like, first of all, even I'm not trying to dump on the armorist, but like, if this has only been her third production, why is she working on a Western where it's very, very gun heavy? That's my first question. Second question is like, because there's, the whole chain of events is still in question, and that's what I want to know most of all. So I don't know if anything's come out. I know you're reading this here, Culture, so I'm going to let you continue.
But I didn't
hear any of the main bits yet.
No, this is from the warrant. So this is Sousa himself, dude. So we're getting actual, investigative information here. So, anyway, according to the warrant, Sousa said 3 people had been handling the guns or firearms for scenes. They were checked by the armorer, first assistant director, and then given to the actor using them. The investigator said Sousa was unaware of anyone on set being checked to see if they had live ammunition on them before or after scenes were filmed. The only thing checked are the firearms to avoid live ammunition being in them. Joel Sousa stated, there should never be live rounds whatsoever near or around the scene, the affidavit said. Sousa's representatives have not returned CNN's request for comment. According to the affidavit, Russell told investigators Baldwin was trying to explain how he's going to draw out the firearm and where his arm would be at when the firearm was pulled from the holster. Russell was not sure why the firearm was discharged and just remembered the loud bang from the firearm, says the affidavit. When asked how Baldwin handled the firearm, Russell told investigators the actor had been very careful and recalled an earlier instance when Baldwin made sure it was safe and that a child wasn't near him when they were discharging a firearm during that scene. The search warrant sought to recover any footage, video cameras, computer equipment, and memory cards used by cameras on the set. No charges have been filed in the incident. Blah, blah, blah. Now they go into some of the stuff we've talked about. Assistant director was subject of complaints, according to an earlier search warrant affidavit. And again, these are all legal documents, guys. The film's assistant director, David Halls, handed the prop gun to Baldwin before shooting and yelled "cold gun," a remark meant to indicate that the weapon didn't have live rounds.
He's not supposed to do that.
Baldwin
he's allowed to yell "cold gun," but he's not supposed to touch the guns.
Well, okay. Baldwin was handed one of 3 prop guns that were set up in a cart by an armorer for the movie. And
okay, stop right there a second. The way this is worded, this goes back to what Andre was saying the other day. It almost sounds like the armorer was not on the set, like they're supposed to be.
It does sound like that, doesn't it?
Oh God, if that's the case, holy crap.
And if that's the
You
case,
see, that's exactly what I'm saying, because this is something that I have felt was missing in all of the footage, because we hear that 3 guns had been prepared, and the first AD picked one. I haven't seen any kind of coverage saying that the armorer said it's this one.
Well, I'm not sure, but we're getting like a lot of the actual.
Yeah, go ahead and finish. Sorry, I didn't get too far into that.
Let's see. Baldwin was handed one of 3 prop guns that were set in the cart by an armorer for the movie, and Halls did not know there were live rounds in the gun.
By an armorer. They didn't say the armorer.
That's true.
Okay, and here's the other thing that's bothered me is now I'm hearing live rounds, and this is something that goes back to something I did hear. One of the few things I heard that just kind of clicked with me is like, okay, if there was live rounds on this set, why would there be? And the story I heard, and again, this is just something from one of the fucking several stories out there. So I don't know if this is true or not, but if this is the case, this is bad. But supposedly they had a fun gun on the set. And what I mean is they had a real gun that they would go out and fucking shoot, like the crew and everybody would play around with.
Yep.
If this is the case, that falls on the armorer more than anybody, because that is not supposed to be allowed anywhere near the set. And unfortunately, even if she was or was not there, the fact that it was even on the set is a big no-no. Because like you guys were talking about the producerial things, if he was just named as a producer because of his being brought on the project too, that's another thing, because that happens all the time when a main star signs on to something, they just sign on as a producer. That doesn't mean
that secures financing for the
exactly.
production.
So that doesn't mean he actually physically had anything to do with any of the hiring, firing, or any of that. Because I've been hearing a lot of stuff about the assistant director as well, and I don't know what to believe because of the hearsay crap that's going around. Like,
well, and again, this is why I'm doing my level best to find documents that actually have to do with the investigation statement. So anyway, so apparently Halls had been subject of complaints over safety and his behavior on set during 2 productions in 2019. 2 people who worked closely with him told CNN. Okay, that's hearsay.
Yeah.
Now, the complaints against Halls include a disregard for safety protocols for weapons and pyrotechnic use, blocked fire lanes and exits, and instances of inappropriately behaving in the workplace. Again, hearsay, not part of this investigation. Maggie Gull, an IATSE Prop 44 prop maker and licensed pyrotechnician, said in a statement to CNN that, and this person put their name out there, that while working on Hulu's Into the Dark anthology series in February and May in 2019, Halls neglected to hold safety meetings and consistently failed to announce the presence of a firearm on set to the crew, as is protocol. So there's somebody that's A, putting their name out there, B, telling you what happened during 2 specific incidents themselves, which can be
putting
verified.
a show to it so you can actually verify it.
Yeah.
The only thing to take into consideration, though, it is from IATSE. So, like,
well, but that's an IATSE. This is an IATSE person, Maggie Gull.
Again, we've pointed out that's another people who have a political play in this.
At this particular time, there are, yes, that's true. So, okay, so beyond that, okay, Halls did not respond to CNN's request for, of course he's not going to. Okay, so here we go. The armorer who prepared the prop gun used by Baldwin was identified in search warrant documents as Hannah Gutierrez. Her actual name's Hannah Gutierrez Reed. She had recently finished work on her first project as head armorer, she said in a September podcast interview, which Andre referred to earlier. I was really nervous about it at first, Gutierrez said, of working as head armorer on the set of the movie The Old Way, starring Nicolas Cage. I almost didn't take the job because I wasn't sure if I was ready, but doing it, like, it went really smoothly, she said in an interview on the Voices of the West podcast, which is dedicated to the Old West. So obviously she had a positive experience there. And again, there is context, I'm sure, to that entire interview. So it would be in everybody's best interest, if you want to rely on this, to actually listen to the whole thing, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Note how that is being taken out of context.
Yep.
And that's a deliberate smear by people trying to shift blame away from Baldwin. Now, I'm not saying that she is innocent here, not saying that at all. Only take notice that here something is being used out of context in a game to shift blame towards her. And speaking of her, we have someone in the back room waiting. So let us bring in Nina Infinity. Welcome.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're excellent.
Doing great.
We are excellent. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I can't wait to hear your thoughts on all of this. But first, let Culture finish reading.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So here we go. Her work as armorer ranges from teaching actors how to wear a gun belt to aiming and shooting, she said. She was my role model. Hutchins' husband described the loss of his wife as enormous. So this is going to be the family part of the story. Blah, 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 blah. Do you guys want me to read through this or move on?
Well,
it's really not that important because it's a huge loss.
That's
obviously.
a personal importance of
but that's a personal thing. It doesn't really help in how could this happen, and that's kind of like my thing. What I think is the real core issue here is that Hollywood has routines in place to prevent this from happening. And it hasn't happened since Brandon Lee, but it happened here. And that's obviously because the routines weren't followed. Now,
this was technically not even a Hollywood movie. It's independent. It's outside of the studio system. So that's its own issues right there.
Of course, it's an own issue, but still, that leaves the question to me: how many other times has this almost happened? Again, it's like a cascade of failure. It's a chain of events where every single link in the chain has to go wrong. Now, how many other times did it almost happen because they didn't abide by the existing rules as well? That's my big question.
Well, not just that, the fact that live rounds keeps being used in official documents now makes me wonder if that one gun story isn't true. And if that's the case, that is just, how can you fucking just... Look, I get it. You want to play with a gun sometimes, they're thrilling, they're exhilarating. But what the fuck are you doing with a live gun with live ammo near a fucking set that looks just like one of the other guns? Makes no mistake. It's just a mistake waiting to happen, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's why it's not allowed. Like that's
what I'm saying. Like if that is true, like,
Hmm.
and that's what I keep hearing is live rounds. So why would? And that's the only thing that makes sense to me, right? Script, like it's just stupidity.
Yeah, like especially in like a Western, if you're dealing with revolvers or shotguns, they replace the hammer with like either a rubber hammer or a plastic hammer, or in some cases a wood hammer, so that it can't do anything. Like it has the function of like moving back and forth, but it doesn't have the ability to ignite a primer on a bullet. So that's the other part too. Where did they properly modify the guns? Did the person who was in charge of procuring those weapons do their due diligence in modifying them so that they cannot fire live rounds in a Western? It's just boggles the mind that.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is if this is true, what it sounds like is this is a gun that the crew and stuff would go off between shots and go shoot at like bottles and stuff like that and stuff like, but what had happened was, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me as to why there would be any live ammo or a live working gun on the set, right? Like if that is the case. And again, I'm not trying to posit any stuff out there or spin on this, but that is what has come out now. And if that is the case, if they had a gun like that near the set, that is the most like negligent thing you could ever do.
The most negligent thing you could ever do. Yeah.
Yeah. With that established, Nina, we haven't heard you spoke about this on our channel so far, at least. So what's your take on this? What the hell happened here? What went wrong?
Well, I've been kind of like a little bit silent on this one because I'm not fully aware of the entire situation because of like there's so much nuances, like Script Doctor was just saying, like the rules of the set and whatever. It's a very tragic situation going on, like with regards to that the lady being killed and the other being like very injured. I think that like at first when this happened, one of the things that really got to me was seeing people's reactions with regards to Alec Baldwin, because like I understand that he's a lefty and I understand that he's anti-gun and he's said some very questionable things in the past on Twitter, but this is a very tragic incident, and I feel like people just trying to like everyone's just trying to blame somebody, and at the end of the day, he does take the brunt of the responsibility because you are supposed to check. Like even someone like me who knows absolutely not, I've never fired a fire gun. I've never been anywhere near like live weaponry. But like I know, even I know that you're supposed to check if there's live rounds before you shoot your gun, and you're never supposed to shoot it at anyone. Like you're not supposed to point it near people. So like I know basic gun safety, even though I've been very anti-gun all my life. So it just feels like there's a lot of negligence going on, like all around on the set. I don't know. It resulted in a tragic incident. Now, the other side of it is I'm seeing like the conspiracy theory side of it as well.
And
that side is because I'm really big into the conspiracy theory side. So like there's people that are stating that the lady who got killed was into possibly making a documentary series or a documentary about very dark side of Hollywood with what's going on with kids and stuff like that there. So the fact if that is true and this
Yeah, but
happened,
see, that's the
it's
thing, though,
all
is
very questionable.
that's why it's very nuts to think about, because even if that was the case, unless she was one of the main people involved, that's not going to stop it. And it's just more of the stuff like a Trump supporter handed him the gun and all this other
Yeah,
stuff.
that's my favorite one, and that's the first one I saw. The first, just to I don't want to take any of this stuff seriously,
Yeah.
but like the first one that I saw was that it must have been a Trump supporter that handed him the gun, and also in case of like this thing, the documentary that she was working on. Yeah, she wasn't the driving force, not going to stop anything. And also, if she was working on that, why the hell have Alec Baldwin, of all people in the world, be the one to pull the trigger?
Yeah.
No,
No, that wasn't the thing though. Like
Yeah.
it's not that Alec Baldwin had anything to do with it.
Right.
It's
Is that we
more
set
like,
up? Yeah.
exactly. It's more like a nefarious, like what you guys are saying, like how there's so much basically bad stuff going on the set. Like there's so much not safe stuff that someone who has nefarious purposes could be like, well, I can take advantage of this situation because this whole thing is it's so, there's so many problems here that they'll never know. Like it's kind of like the perfect crime scenario.
Well, it's almost more like a perfect storm, and that's why I brought up the one bit, and that's why that's the only reason I brought it up, is because even though it is hearsay at this point, it's the only thing to me that makes sense as to why there would be any live rounds on this set to begin with. In which case, it's just fucking stupidity and an accident waiting to happen, right? Like that's the thing, and to me, as you know, Andre pointed out Friday, never. What was the saying? Go, Andre.
Never attribute to malice what can be explained by negligence.
Exactly. I feel that too, Andre. But at the same time, I feel like if you are a nefarious person, if you're like, you want something done, you could definitely take advantage of a situation like this and do that. But if that's the case, I don't know. That remains to be seen.
I've heard a lot of nutty shit, and I've seen a lot of
it. It would make like a great plot for a modern day Agatha Christie adaptation or something like that. I'm not disputing that, but as I said on Friday, referencing Sigmund Freud, who sometimes would go wild with his interpretations of the dreams of neurotic women in 19th century Vienna. Even he said sometimes a pipe is just a pipe.
Yeah, and the other thing is that even if that was the case, like even if they wanted to take her out for all that kind of stuff or whatever, that's the kind of stuff that you will never find out. Like the normies, us like plebes, that's the kind of stuff that will never come out. Even if it comes out in their investigation, like we will never find out about it because that stuff is.
I would delay any such thoughts down that line just yet, because
there's still a lot of details coming out.
There's still a lot of detailed information, and if there is something to it, I think it's going to be too many obvious things to ignore if there was something to it. And so far, I haven't seen enough of that I'm willing to entertain that line of reasoning. Of course, that could change, but at this moment in time, I would prefer treating this as an accident and a case of negligence rather than something nefarious until the evidence overwhelmingly suggests otherwise, which it at this juncture does not do.
Right.
I think it's absolutely negligence. And what's interesting is that there's a kind of like similar parallels to this story and what's going on with Ruby Rose, which I think we're going to be talking about on Toxic Femme tonight.
I'm actually making the thumbnail for that right now in this second with Ruby Rose. I think I finished it right now.
All right. Well, now Nina sent me a version of this story that we're reading right now that has, I think, a little bit more in it. And I apologize if we got through most of this already, but like it talks about the rehearsal taking place in the church, which we got through that.
Yep.
And pointing it at the camera, which is also part of what I think you said. Yep. They believe the gun was a cold gun. Okay, so this is what it goes on a little farther. It says, while explaining the safety announcement. Okay. All right. After rehearsal, the cast and crew took a lunch break. So this didn't happen during rehearsal, it sounds like. So this is even going a little further than that other one. According to the warrant, Souza said then they returned and he was unsure if the firearm used by Baldwin had been checked again for safety. Okay, this sounds almost like a different chain of events.
Yeah, and if you're unsure, you always check. You get the armor, you get the gun wrangler, you get the actor.
Souza then told authorities that when the cast and crew resumed, Baldwin was rehearsing a cross draw with the prop gun. Okay, this is where you came in before then, Culture.
Yeah.
Was looking over the shoulder of Helena when he heard that sounded like a whip and then a pop. The director then noticed that Hutchins, who was standing behind him, had began complaining about her stomach and grabbing her midsection. As she stumbled backwards and was assisted to the ground, cameraman Reed Russell recalled Hutchins saying she couldn't feel her legs as medics started treating her. Okay, so this doesn't even say anywhere in here where the director was hurt for any reason whatsoever. Like, he's not mentioned at all, other than...
But that's because he wasn't seriously injured, so no one cares.
Yeah. Unfortunately. I mean, people...
Okay, it says here Souza was struck in the shoulder. So he was the one who was actually struck, not the main director. Souza. Or was Souza the main director?
Is the main director.
He is the main director.
But where's the assistant director in all this
shit?
He's
the writer and the director.
Okay, so where's the assistant director in all this
shit? We
shit?
haven't heard. I mean, that's just what I mean. We only have so much information to go on here. We don't know exactly what happened there or what happened with him. Maybe he was like, I'm going to take a quick trip to Mexico right about now. Like, we don't know. No one has told anything.
Well, right there then is the problem is they... Yeah. So again, the more we're hearing officially, the less and less likely it's coming on the shoulders of Alec and more on the shoulders of the chain of people that were supposed to be taking care of the gun.
Again, there's something systemic that went wrong here. It's not one individual person. Yeah.
And that's why I was saying the same thing. Like, it's interesting that like that whole Ruby Rose thing came out too, because you can kind of see what happens on a set when there's negligence going on, and that it could be it could lead to fatalities. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. And when you get people that don't do their job right, it can be very tragic.
And BK Panther brings up the point as to why we're stressing. Make sure when you're reading something, you're seeing who's saying what. And stuff like that, because they can even screw up little things like this. I just messed up who was the assistant director myself, because I'm just becoming, up to date with some of this stuff. So again, it's one of those things that we won't know all the ins and outs for at least a couple of weeks, I bet. Yeah.
We may never know the details of what happened here, like the full details.
Yeah,
and we don't have to. We need to. I think that we do need to know like the overall picture. We need to know enough that one can ascertain this is what went wrong. Not necessarily so that you will nail someone for it, because that's a very unhealthy attitude. That we have to figure out exactly what happens so someone goes to jail for this. You can, of course, have that attitude, but I think it's much more important that you have the attitude. We need to figure out exactly what went wrong here so that we may learn from this. Exactly. And we may draw lessons to prevent this from ever happening again. And then if it was like, this was completely preventable if they only had done this, this, and this, and it befalls on that, and that. Yeah, maybe some hard time is the right to do here, but we don't know that yet. First, one has to just figure out what happened and try to leave all emotion on the side. Now, in this case, it's like unfortunate that it's Alec Baldwin, because many people are going to think that it couldn't have happened to a better person because of his, shall we say, abrasive,
colorful
previous behavior.
Yeah.
Colorful is one way of putting it. I would not use that myself, but yeah. But yeah, no, he certainly has been extremely abrasive. And the irony is that if there was anyone who would have politicized this, if it was someone else, it would have been him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just a very tragic incident.
It is.
I think.
It is.
And it sucks for like moving forward with film, because I'm hearing like, that's the other thing that I've been hearing about now. Like from this, like now you're hearing like, all sorts of prop guns should be banned, like, or like you're hearing like all these different kind of like
You're hearing
you're hearing the overreactions.
yeah, and I'm like, okay, so like film already sucks, and now we're gonna start banning props and like different kinds of things.
We don't have to make it suck any more than that.
That I would be very surprised. Like there's not going to be any movement on that. I mean, already airsoft weapons have been dominant in productions for the last 15 years, mostly for safety and the fact that you can convert a real gun to an airsoft relatively without any issues. And then there's also prop companies that make airsoft weapons that they can rent out to productions as well. So yeah, there's not going to be that. But again, there's more productions that have occurred in the last 40 years that have had 0 incidents with their firearms as support that there's not really an issue. This is not really an issue. It's just a tragic event, and there's a reason why they're rare, and it's best to try and make it more rare as we can, just by making sure you hire competent people. And again, this is not a studio production. This is independent. I think it's like Bondit Media Company or something of that nature. Again, independent means basically you're not backed by a studio, which means it's you, me, anyone can grab a camera, grab our toys or what have you, and make a movie and then try and sell it. That's an independent film. They have various degrees of financing and networking in place.
And expertise, like they may not necessarily have, like a weapons expertise or whatever on set that will tell you, hey, like make sure you're checking if there's live rounds in this gun before you shoot it.
Even on the independent films that I worked on where there have been weapons used, every weapon, doesn't matter if it's functional or not. I mean, they're not functional. They're put in a lock case specifically designed for that weapon with a key and a combination lock, and they are locked usually to their trolley or cart, and you cannot move them.
I learned about always that kind of watched. Stuff too. On because I talked to Joseph Malazzi for Dark Matter, and he was talking about their guns, and like because they used a lot of guns on there, like and most of the guns that they used obviously were like made up guns, like they had people actually make the guns because it's a futuristic like sci-fi series.
Yep.
So, but even those props were always in a locked room, and only a specific person had, access to it, and blah blah blah. Like usually there's a lot of, red tape around weapons, no matter what kind of weapons they are.
Not just for the production, but in the event that someone breaks in and steals them.
Exactly.
And that's why they're outfitted so that they cannot fire real live rounds, so that if someone were to break in and steal movie guns and take them to try and rob a bank and someone challenges them and they squeeze a trigger, nothing's going to happen. That's why they want to do that. That's why they do that.
And I also learned from him and what was going on the set of Dark Matter, because again, like they had a lot of a lot of shooting scenes. So they would have a gun expert come on the set and teach the actors who were not familiar with firearms how to shoot one like with real guns, and it would be like an actual date where they would basically learn gun safety, how to carry a gun, how to shoot a gun, and all this stuff in a very safe environment, like like a kind of like a gun range or whatever like that they would set up at the studio, and there would be people there that will oversee the whole thing so that there's no tragedies going on like this. But usually if you're talking about a good film set where people actually care about their jobs and are doing a good job, that's the kind of thing that you would expect to see. That's not what happened here.
Yeah, and White Knight wonders, Andre, is there any risk of any liability for Netflix here? Honestly, I do not know. That's a legal question. It's going to depend entirely on the laws in the state where this was filmed. I cannot answer that.
I don't think Netflix has any stake in this production because it's Highland Film Group, so that they're the distributor for it. So they're not in.
Yeah, I would imagine that this is on the production company and not on the distributor.
Yeah, this is on Bandit Media Capital and Highland Film Group as regards to their stuff.
Yeah, because Netflix would just be a distributor. They would have nothing to do with.
Exactly, just like with their association with that terrible child film that was made in France. They were just a distributor.
Exactly.
They did not greenlight it and say we want you to make this. They're like, oh, this is something a French film. We'll distribute it, and it's like. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no, they're not necessarily liable for anything there. I don't think so. But
Okay, Crispy
yeah.
Critter says, I cringe every time one of you refer to a gun as a toy. That mentality is part of the problem. I was in the military arms instructor,
For what it's worth.
FWIW.
Did any of us refer
I don't
to a gun
remember
as a
any of
toy?
us.
I don't recall any of us doing that.
I think we refer to actors and people on set referring to them as a toy.
That we may have done. They may very well.
Unless you're
have done
talking
that,
about the quote unquote fun gun, and I'm just using the quote that they had used in the
exactly. We're using their terms here. But don't you worry. I think that.
And by that, I meant that and I even said there was quotations around it because it was not a toy; it was a real, actual, live firearm that they had on the set, and that's the only reason I brought it up. Because if that's the case, it's like, oh my God, are you guys freaking idiots or what?
Clearly.
Well, and if that's what led to this,
just to clarify what Tom meant, as in the people on set, the actors,
not you guys in the chat.
Refer to the gun as like not you guys in the chat, but like the people that would refer to it as a toy gun in the first place, they would be the idiots.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of people are getting upset about the whole prop thing, and I did hear Script do a very good job of correcting that earlier about.
Yeah, I just hate the terminology. So this is fine.
Yeah, I understand that too, because like a gun is something that needs to be treated with the respect it deserves always, because it can freaking kill and maim you, no matter how insignificant, no matter how small a caliber. Gun can do some real freaking damage. Even a tiny little Salon rifle can do some real damage there.
Well, you never abuse a firearm. And I think that's what gun owners and people who aren't really like favorable of guns, because I don't really care much for guns. But the thing is that if you're a gun owner and you're responsible with it, you're fine in my books. But if you're an abuser and you're a gun owner as well, that is against the abuse of guns, you and I are on the same page.
I've actually been always under the impression, and because I was raised in Canada, like Script Doctor, and I was very liberal, and I did not like guns for a very long time. But I've always been under the impression, especially if you're in the States, I don't even think I don't even think you necessarily have to like guns. I think you should go take a gun safety training because it's freaking serious. And if you're ever attacked or something like that with a gun, then you will know how to use one. And in the event that you ever have to, I think that gun safety is super important. And if you even never touch one in the United States, you should know you should know all about it, just because it's good to have knowledge.
Well, okay, one fact that so far is left out of everything that we've read to date, and this goes back to talking about this super chat and talking about the people on the crew and trying to talk about the merit of the armorer that they hired. They just say an armorer. They don't specifically call out the armorer that they were referring to. So my question is, if she was a member of Local 44, which is IATSE, right, and she was part of the people that were not on the set for whatever reason, could it be a different armorer, or was she not on the set, as Tina Bojan said in the chat a little while ago, because of COVID restrictions? Or there are a lot of questions have not been answered.
Yeah, I'm thinking she might have been one of the ones that walked out, but we don't know that yet.
Well, we don't know
the other part that's also there. Whether she was or wasn't, if whoever the main armorer was, if they weren't there, they're supposed to take the weapons with them.
That's insane. And so we, man, we have so many.
Because again, the weapons themselves are the property of the property master's company. They are licensed to the person who operates that company. They're not technically owned by any individual. They are rented out to productions because they're used on multiple productions. That is why.
What if hypothetically she did?
Sure.
What if hypothetically the armorer did walk out and did bring the weapons with her? They got some other guy come in with his guns instead.
That's also a possibility, and a dangerous one at that.
God, New Mexico, do they require an FFL?
They should.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
If it's in New Mexico, I think they should. Yeah.
Federal firearms license.
Thank you.
Huh. All right. Just curious.
Well, especially if they're going to be supervising people like actors and talent and stunt operation stuff. Like even the stuntmen have to get licensed for whatever state or province they're in for weapons. They have to go pass a training course. I think it's every 3 months if they want to maintain that. gosh, what are the other? Oh God, I'm going back a few years on regulations.
Constantly training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I quickly make a comment about the
Sure.
Xenobit super chat here?
Oh, you might. Why don't you read it before you do?
I will.
So,
I will. Xenobit, thank you so much for the $5. Says also studios need less activists and more qualified labor. And
That's IATSE.
Exactly. See, that's the thing. I 100% agree with this, and I think that was one of my questions. Was like the first thing I thought about when this happened. I was like, okay, was the person that was in charge of this like a quote unquote like diversity hire or like a box that needed to be clicked? Because studios aren't hiring people who are qualified anymore. They're just doing it because they have a list of people that they need to hire in order to get their movie made or like whatever, it's one of those things now where you don't know if qualified people are actually getting the job. And that's a big thing for me. I don't know if
that could be a pertinent point here because, again, I'm not trying to speak to the sex of the individual.
Right. I'm not either.
She's only had worked on, and this is what I said before. What are you doing working on a movie like this that is gun heavy when you've only had 2 films that you've worked on before? I don't give a shit who your daddy was. That ain't the point here. Like, the point is if because the more and more it goes along, it's looking less good for her and the AD or whoever it was that actually handled the gun to begin with. So
it's actually not good for anyone because
no,
this
it's not. But like
poorly all around.
I keep seeing here though, with like, and again, like you, Andre, I'm trying to take with a grain of salt a lot of the stuff we're seeing on the hit pieces about this individual, but it's like she is not helping her cases in certain things. That's the problem I'm seeing here, and that goes right along with the qualified labor and whether or not she was somebody who probably shouldn't have had a more experienced armorist around her for at least a couple more movies. Is my point. Right? I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, you work on a job, you get trained, right? Like, you work on, to me, like, you should almost have to have a certain amount of hours logged, especially with something important like this. Like, even a pilot.
To get in the union, you need an hour limit threshold in order to get into the union. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't even seem like enough.
And
no, not an hour. I mean, they have a set number of hours you have to qualify before you get into the union. Not a single hour. It's
I thought you said yeah. I'm like, fucking hour. What the fuck's an hour gonna do?
For like makeup artists, it's like 40 hours. I think, and I think it goes higher and higher for the more level you are. Like even for set decoration, like on set construction, I think it's like 100 hours. And I don't remember what it was for an armor because again, I was not an armor. I was just an assistant, so I was only there. I wasn't even allowed to touch the weapons unless it was like a ray gun or a laser gun that was not an actual thing.
Yeah. No, here's my question then is because like, okay, if she was there, then clearly, she should have known better considering she grew up around this stuff. And again, I'm not trying to attack this individual, but at the same time, if she wasn't there, then where does that put the situation? If she left on the strike, is she still responsible or is it completely out of her hands now? That's my big question.
It depends on how she left. So let's go under the presupposition that let's say she's been doing everything right. She's not had any incidents, and she did leave, and she took all the weapons with her, and yet weapons still managed to show up on set that were probably not hers, or probably not from the production that she was, or from the thing that she has. She's in the innocent park here. She's taken all the responsibility necessary for her job to be okay. Yeah. And then it's basically the investigation of, okay, well, who brought these weapons to set? What are the qualifications? Are they licensed? Are they registered? And I don't mean like, state registration of guns. I mean, like, are they registered with the production of who's going on this? What's the paper trail with regards to where these came from and what they're doing and so forth and so forth for the purposes of the production. That all has to be accounted for. So unfortunately, we're in the position where we now have to wait and see. And if this is this armor was someone who grew up with a parent who is one, and she got into the same business, I have to take that behavior on the benefit of the doubt that she should know her stuff pretty darn well.
She should know it better than anyone because she would have gotten training from a very early age. However,
it's not 100%. Yeah.
Exactly, but here's like the thing. I'm always a little bit skeptical when the kids follow the exact same footprints as their parents, no matter how well they're trained, for this very, very simple reason. Sometimes it skips a generation. And when I say sometimes, I mean nearly all the time it skips a generation. If my personal experience, if the parents are really, really good at one thing, the kids could also be really, really good, but at something else. Not necessarily in the
Great
same thing.
example is look at singers and actors, right? Like
Exactly. I mean, how often is it that you have like the son or daughter of an A-lister having that same kind of talent themselves? That's exceedingly rare.
extremely rare. Yeah.
And when you do have someone that really makes it on their own, they're typically better than their much more obscure parent.
And what you end up having is that you have that child raised in an atmosphere where that type of profession is comfortable to them. So like doesn't matter if they're good at it or not. It's a comfortable situation that they're familiar with, so they can end up getting a false sense of confidence as a result. So yeah, that's a factor as well that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, very good point from Vincenzo Beretta for €10. This is the first accident that happened since Brandon Lee's death in 1993. I think that the safety record is excellent. Just think to how much guns are used in movies every year. And
Yes.
this is very,
This is
very
what I've
true.
been saying too, and especially to my friends who are, people who are very pro-gun and stuff like that. Remember, and that's where I was saying, be careful with, where you jump to with the jokes and stuff right now, because that stuff could be used against you too. In this case here too, this is another thing to point out. When people are like, "Oh, this is this and this is that and this is why guns are that," it's like, no, wait a minute here. It's been 33 years or whatever,
28 years.
Or 28 years. Sorry, my math was backwards. Math is racist. Yeah. So we're to the point where we're damn near 3 decades since we've had a tragedy like this, and I'm not trying to belittle this one in the least or that one, but the fact is that you've had that long since you've had this. That's like saying a town has gone X amount of years without a murder, right? Like that's amazing. How can you even factor in that kind of a statistic? That's actually pretty goddamn good compared to the statistics we're seeing on the other side of things going into the Ruby Rose situation.
Right.
Where the other day where we went down a laundry list of injuries that have never really gotten out there or were never really
that
reported,
are not firearm related at all.
Or that are not
Exactly.
and most importantly, not firearm related at all. And where there's been several tragic deaths and other things that have happened. And, speaking of the Batwoman situation where we've had somebody who's already been, confined as a paraplegic for the rest of her life because of a stupid accident that happened on the set. So
that is beyond words, absolutely beyond words, to be paraplegic, and then the not being able to walk part is actually the least of issues. So yeah, it's unbelievable that something like that can happen.
Yeah, because that's what happens when you have negligence, right? Like I think that, on the part of the studio side, especially with regards to Batwoman, it's like they have a lot of unlike this situation, because like Script Doctor said, these people were this is not a studio movie, this is an independent film. So like on the Batwoman side, there's a lot more accountability to be had versus this one. Because that one's like a CW Warner Bros. Show, and there's a lot more expectation there. Not to take anything away from this, but that's why I also think it's crazy when people are saying things like "let's ban guns from movies," and I'm like, dude, this. Like it's been however many years since the last gun accident on a set. Why are we overreacting here? Again, not to take anything away from this incident because it was tragic, but the overreaction is kind of crazy.
Yeah, you will have some people overreacting, and this is the same thing that Tom said already on Friday, or I believe he even said so on Thursday on After Dark, that this thing is going to be politicized and abused so badly from absolutely all kind of special interests to try to further their cause. Which is why one just have to try to keep one's head straight and don't get fooled by the argumentation that is going to come here, and the false narratives and the victimhood and everything to go with that. Try to keep one's head cool and just look at what happened and see what can be learned from that.
Right. And
without
again,
mixing in this, that, or the other.
Yeah, because as we pointed out Friday, if it wasn't Baldwin, it could have been Chris Pratt, it could have been Clint Eastwood, it could have been anybody, no matter what.
What if it was Gina Carano?
Gina Carano, even, yeah. Like, it could have been. Like, these things happen.
Yeah, or as I said, what if it was Chris Pratt? Someone that the people who don't like Alec Baldwin typically may like, because who doesn't like Chris Pratt? It could have been him. It could have been Gina Carano. It could have been anyone.
Yes, that's why the first response, the initial response to Alec Baldwin doing it was really, to me, it just hit it, like it was so bad, because I was like, you guys, this could have been anybody. Like, it could have been literally anybody on the right, on the left. This isn't it's a tragic accident, and like just using that like to get what you want in terms of like reforms and stuff like that is just, I don't know, it's so stupid. I don't like it.
Well, the thing is, the reforms are in place. You just have to follow it. And
right.
We've got, again, 28 years of people following the rules for gun safety, and nothing of note to come up. And now what we have here is we have a talented and on the rise young woman and mother who is no longer with us anymore. And that's tragic. Absolutely tragic.
Yeah, it is. That's a real tragedy here. That is a real tragedy here. And with that, let us see what you all have to say by going through some of the classic super chats, unless there are some that we can bring up on screen here. I haven't checked that just yet. Let's see if there are some. Yeah, here. Comrade Roof Korean the Based. He sent this as a regular message earlier. I actually was about to bring it up. But thanks for the super chat. He says, for $5, Mamie Mitchell, script supervisor, called 911. She was swearing on the phone at the 911 operator about revisions and some AD supposed to check the gun.
Now, they released an edited version of this. I did not know it was edited until I read the entire transcript, because the version I had heard only had Mamie Mitchell on it, and you didn't hear the other side of it. Like, in between there, they were cutting out the other bits. So I didn't hear what the AD had to say in this part. I didn't hear any of that part of it until I read the transcript. I don't know if anybody else heard the 911 call at all, but yeah.
I did not.
I have not.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, the one they put out there. Like, you can tell it, like, after I read that whole transcript, it's like, because you can hear what he was saying and then what she was saying on the phone, but like all the bits where he was talking was cut out. Like, you didn't hear any of that stuff.
So wait, the AD was in the background yelling?
That's what it sounds like when you're reading the transcript. But when I heard the phone call, you don't hear the AD at all in the phone call.
Well, I mean, you shouldn't. The phone call's between the dispatcher and the person on the phone.
No, but I'm saying you don't hear him
else
in the background at all. But like in the transcript, they're like writing it out as, because you can obviously hear it probably in the original recording, is my point. Or it's this. Like for Britain Root, maybe there was two different phone calls. That could be the case as well. Because the one I heard just heard one person on the line. It wasn't two. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Just such a tragic incident that could have been avoided if people knew how to do their jobs right. Or that's really sad. That's really sad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But I really look forward to hearing more about the Armorer story, because
I'm curious if
the Armorer and the first AD, a lot is going to become clear, I think.
And yeah, my bigger question is, was she there, right? And if
that's
she was or wasn't,
that's the first thing. Was she or was she not there? And if she, and then the rest of the questions will be from there. If she wasn't there, did she bring all the guns with her? If so, she's in the clear. If she was there, the hell happened?
That's the interesting part for me, because her being there or not being there is like one of the first questions that like should have been answered. Like, it should have been answered by now. Like, there's been enough days to get this kind of information. Like, I don't know why this information is not out yet. That's kind of crazy to me.
Well, they have been. Here's like the thing, that we've been like bombarded with bits and pieces of information, but no clear step-by-step narrative.
It took years.
And that's obviously
stuff through.
What the police are in the process of trying to figure together. Of course, I think that's like weird. How difficult can it be? How long can it possibly take? It shouldn't be that hard to figure out that stuff, in my book at least. But
it took a little while for the Brandon Lee stuff. Like, it took a little while. I'm remembering it took almost like years before all that stuff finally came out.
Yeah, and why did it take so long? I mean, why didn't they have that all clear within a week of it happening when it was fresh?
I think within the studio system, inside the system there, it was actually cleared quite well. It was just the rumors outside that kind of perpetuated all the misinformation. Because again, we didn't have the same level of communication we have today.
Yeah, that could very well be.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Why I keep saying at least a few weeks, if not months, before we have any kind of resolution on this. And that may not even be a resolution. That just might even be before they decide if they're going to press any kind of charges. And they don't. And again, I don't know necessarily what documents would ever be public and how long it takes before they become public. Because I know that was another thing with like the Brandon Lee case and stuff too. Because it was more so in recent years where more people have found out more about that case. So I have no idea because I don't work in that region. If somebody in the chat does and knows anything about those kind of documents and the type of restrictions they have on them, I have no clue.
So I'm going to ask a question here. This is just like, I'm just asking. Do you guys think there should be consequences for Alec Baldwin because he is the guy that shot the gun? Like, do you guys think?
Knowing what I know now, personally, I'm going to say no. But that's just going off of what I know now. That leaving me the room to reserve the judgment when we have more information. But everything I've been hearing so far, like Andre said before, this sounds like a chain of events that led to this, not so much one individual's. You can't really hold one person liable at this point yet.
Exactly. And my thing is that Alec Baldwin, he has two hats here. He has one hat as an actor, and he has one hat as a producer, albeit producer by name. Plus, he also has extreme seniority in terms of he has done this many, many, many times before. Case in point, Tom, you will of course recall the story about Sean Connery on the set of Highlander, when he was like, you need to feed these people, because he was the most experienced person on the crew. He recognized that here are like younger people trying to rush things. They're not doing things properly. They need to feed the crew in order to get like the stuff that they needed. Here there are many, many rules that have been broken very clearly. As someone so senior in the film industry, someone that has been on so many sets before, someone who I assure you that the whole movie couldn't have happened without, since it being funded was probably dependent on him being in it. He is the one that needed to do that role that Sean Connery had. He shouldn't have to. It's not his job. But if no one else steps up, then I feel that he kind of like has some moral obligation to say, look, this ain't working. We have to do things properly here, especially since he also has a producer credit. So through that producer credit, I feel that he has some responsibility for that chain of events that went wrong. Now, in terms of him as an actor, and again, here are things that we do not know, but let's just assume that things are the way that script says, that he is supposed to witness that the gun is being prepped and given to him, and then he is communicated to this is a safe gun, and then he instructs, and then he fires it as instructed. Then it doesn't really matter if then it being him is completely coincidental, because it could have been anyone. He has done nothing wrong. At that point, it's not his fault that it's a live bullet, and it shouldn't be any blame for that. But we don't know that was the situation, so we simply need to.
We don't even know the level of awareness that Alec Baldwin had with regards to the crew. Like, did he know that they were dissatisfied? Was he told that yes, some people walked out, or was he told, oh, no, this is the B shift or something coming in or something?
Yeah, because we don't know. I hate to do the more speculating, but the rumor out there, and again, I stress fucking rumor here, folks, is that the AD was butting heads with a lot of people. Okay, so there was even one individual who claims now again, I don't know if this individual witnessed this whole thing, but they said they were part of the production, and again, hearsay, but they had their own run-ins with the AD. So I don't know what the situation is either. But as far as the actor goes, didn't you say earlier, Script, that the actor themselves is, if they open that gun, then they have to start all over again?
Yep.
So like technically it isn't Alec's responsibility, even in this case. And that's where I was trying to say earlier.
And if the actor has any doubts, they have to call the armor or the weapons wrangler for that particular one to come over and check it with them again.
So yeah, that's where I'm
they have
to say.
no person in that position has ever any problem like double checking a firearm. Like it's like, yeah,
right.
Sure,
and
go ahead.
This is what I've been trying to say for the last few days here with when I've gotten into a little bit of a dispute with people about this, is like, I get it. When somebody holds the gun, they are technically the one who's responsible for something. But you have a situation here where even though it is a gun, even if it was a real gun in this situation, we have to remember that this is not a normal situation where, like, if you were at a gun range or something like that, or some, you're around individuals where you're just shooting guns, right? Like this is your army job.
That's the thing though, Tom. Does nescience and like ignorance give you a pass because you didn't know? Like it's
in this place, yes,
you killed someone.
Because the responsibility of those guns lies on the individuals who are responsible for them, being the armorist and or the AD in this case, because that's
the AD is not, because it's always
that's
the
what
armor.
they're saying.
And
yeah, I know, but
the
that's
other part too is that's only for insurance reasons. So even if we're in the situation where, let's say Alec Baldwin was witnessed to the gun being checked and everything was copacetic, and he was told, okay, the armor's like, I'm going to give this to the AD, and he's going to give it to you. First, that's a red flag. The armor should never be handing the gun to the AD. And if Alec Baldwin, if I was in his position, I'd be like, listen, I've worked with guns for years. I want my gun handed directly to me by the armor after I've seen it inspected. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do my thing. Well, he has a little bit of responsibility in this, but there's definitely no malice and there's definitely no intent. And
yeah, definitely not.
And there's a lot of information that's missing out on this. But yeah, the chain of custody between the weapon and the actor cannot have anyone in between. And if there is, that weapon has to be removed, rechecked, reset, confirmed it's still safe to the rest of production, and then back to normal.
That still brings into question whether or not she was on the set.
Yeah.
Right? And going off of court documents, it sounds like the AD may have been stepping in and playing the armorist role. If that's the case,
the AD is going to be responsible, and criminal charges will be placed against them, and then civil charges after that.
And that's what I was getting around to, yes. But again, we're just speculating here, going off of what we know from the court documents. Go ahead, Culture, sorry.
No, I was going to say, as Script has said, usually they'll walk over to you and they'll show you a clear chamber if it's a semi.
They have a pipe cleaner for that stuff. They'll open up the barrel and they'll throw it in there, and then they'll show them the mock bullets. So these are casings that have no backing to it, so it's a hollow piece. So even that hammer, when you're squeezing away, it's hitting air. It's not hitting anything. It's just for when you're looking at the perspective of down the barrel, you can see in the chamber the tips of the bullet. And the chamber rotates. So, I mean, again, there's a lot of precautions that are taken so that the accidents don't happen and deaths don't happen.
Yeah. The cartridge, you're right. They'll show you the empty cartridges. That's true. But they also have, of course, blanks, which they'll also show you the cartridges for.
Yep. They'll show you the whole thing.
Yeah. So you should on a regular basis be dressed down on the weapon, and you know what? Some of them take it even serious. They have you disassemble, reassemble. They try to familiarize you with the weapon on the set. So it is what it is.
But the other problem is this is an independent production. This is where the IATSE thing comes in and all that business. So that's where in the next few weeks things are going to get real rocky here. But I think did we have any classic super chats to get through, Andre?
Yeah, we have many classic super chats to get through. But first, let's get through the one on screen here, which it jumped on me, of course.
There's nothing on screen.
BK Panther says, did you see this video yet? Actor John Schneider reacts to Alec Baldwin's prop gun fatal shooting by Newsmax.
No,
I did not see that.
No.
Nope. Sorry.
I've been hearing about it, but I have not got a chance to check it out yet because I didn't have net until about an hour ago. So, yeah.
And we have the absence of Tom to prove it.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the
That's
show.
why I'm so and that's where it's like, what? Dune didn't play well? I thought it was doing pretty good. I don't even know what's going on with that. So.
Yeah, I didn't know what's going on with that either. That's kind of crazy.
Well, a shit ton of money was left on the table.
Oh, that I can't argue with. And Culture and I have been bringing that up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But moving on to the classic super chats, we have a few here. Our good friend Mexican Iron Man sent us $9.99 saying, Andre, the Dune rabbits are the future descendants of lineage from headless snarf and rabbit chicken genealogy. They are the Arrakis snark rabbits. Yum yum, good for dessert, barbecue grilling action. Yeah, they did look kind of tasty. Mike and Ayer says for $4.99, Fleming's 007 did have anxiety and was heavily depressed. His ladies' man facade was part of the job, and the girl always left him because of it. I would like to hear that from someone that's read the books as well, but if you say so, I haven't read them, so I can't argue one with the other. Lupu says...
I haven't read the Fleming books in a long time. I'm sure I can just pull them out of the library and, go through a few of them, but yeah. I'll check it out.
And Lupu says for 50 Mexican dollars, in the 1950s, middle schools had rifle clubs. Ask yourselves what changed. Also, Google the video of Will Smith doing gun safety checks on set. Yeah, that should be interesting. Comrade Ruvkari and the Based said for $5, we need to stop allowing production companies to control the narrative. Prop guns contain no firing pins or bolts. If it fires real ammo, it's not a prop. Troy Pacelli says for $5, I appreciate the grace everyone wants to give Baldwin, but I cannot separate this event from his tweet of September 22nd, 2017. Now, I'm sure that was like some kind of like gun thing, but honestly, Alec Baldwin has such a history of disgusting tweets that I don't know if that one is any worse than any others. I mean, just go into his Twitter feed and pick and choose. It's all horrible, if you ask me. But that doesn't necessarily make him guilty here. Only, yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but we'll just have to wait and see. And
quick breaking news here. Just it's not anything that important, but it's quick breaking news. Looks like Brendan Fraser is going to be playing the villain in the Batgirl movie. There you
go. Oh wow! How exciting! Double Back Again says for $2, who hired the armorer? Yeah, that would be the producers, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that armorer. Comrade Ruvkari and the Based also said, here the 911 call woman on phone rants to operator. We haven't heard that. Well, some had heard parts of it, but yeah.
Now you're saying that she was ranting, then yeah, I must have heard the other one, because the one I heard the lady was pretty calm on.
Yeah, and he also said, listen to 911 call, woman on the phone, rails on staff. So yeah, that's when the truth comes out, when she's still in a state of shock, obviously. So that actually will be really interesting.
I'll go look for that one, yeah.
Yeah, SDR Red Wolf says for $10, this is starting to sound like the production should be shut down permanently and the movie abandoned.
Actually,
there's too many editors here. Midnight Rider, anyone? This is definite lawsuit territory.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you that actually right now that set's wrapped until they're done with all the investigations. That was news yesterday. So just
and I don't know that movie's ever going to resume.
Nah, I don't think it will.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's done.
Baldwin canceled all of his future projects. He's done.
I told you guys that was supposed. Did I not say that was probably what was going to happen?
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean, like that was one of my questions as well. Was if Alec Baldwin's basically going to retire after this?
I think so.
I think he is too, because well, first of all, you kill someone, your mental state is going to go completely to a different. But he's going to have to live with this for the rest of his life. So if he has any sort of soul. And he's been anti-gun for so long. This is so like it's the most ironic.
But he's also been extremely double standard for very long. So I think it's like a bigger thing that he killed someone.
Oh no, yeah, I think he's done. I think maybe if anything, he might come back in a couple of years and just do like kids movies and stuff like that. So
yeah, maybe he'll do like voice acting. Like
I'm sure he'll try to.
He'll continue to do the Baby Boss stuff and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
About it. Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't think he'll ever do another action movie where he has to pick up a gun. That's for sure.
Yeah. And moving on with the classic super chats here. Let's see where we were. Super Blubberpuss said for $5, Baldwin will become Landis. No jail, but shadow will hang over his career.
That's kind
Shadow.
of what we were just
If
saying.
it survives, yeah, of course, that shadow, pun intended, is going to hang with him forever.
And to
It
be fair,
absolutely
Landis
will.
actually had a career a little ways after that. It was just he started making bad decisions film wise, and like Blues Brothers 2000 killed his career. Not
There's
accident.
that, and then his son doing his stupid stuff too.
Yeah,
that
his son
help.
didn't help.
Uh,
No, but I think Nevinroll, if I'm saying that right, has a good point here. At least is asking a good question to a good point. How much of this Dune reporting, like the new Ghostbusters reporting, are they trying to sabotage downplay the success because it isn't woke enough? What do you think about that, Andre?
I don't think that there's anything with the reporting. There's nothing wrong with the reporting here. There's no success to downplay in the case of Dune, because of the decisions they made in releasing it. I mean, they completely botched the release of this. So I don't see that they're downplaying the success, because there's no success to downplay here.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question because I mean, I'm looking at now 40 million is evidently what it came down with, and
Yeah, for 40.1 or something like that.
because it was doing pretty well Friday, because I was thinking maybe the low Thursday had to do with the fact of the length of the film, right? Because it was like half the amount that Venom made, and it was like, well, maybe it's
You know what I
because
think?
you only get
I
like
think-
half the showings, right?
I think the hype was just gone. The hype was 6 weeks ago when
Probably.
it opened in limited markets in Europe, and most people had gotten over it by now. That's what I think. I agree completely with what Culture and Script speculated earlier, that it would have opened to 100 million 6 weeks ago, but
Oh, yeah.
60 million was left on the table because people weren't hyped anymore.
I'm very curious to see how many people watched it on HBO Max this weekend.
Well, I'm trying to get that Samba data.
They probably won't have it out for a couple days yet, but if as soon as you get it, let us know. We got one we can bring up on screen here. Aiken sends us in $7.99 Australian, says, why wasn't the gun loaded with blanks in front of Alec before the scene? I wouldn't trust any potentially lethal tool to anyone to sign off on. Yeah, and I don't know if you were here a little earlier, but Script explained a lot of this kind of stuff. But again, we don't know everything yet. We just know what we were told in the court document. And what it sounds like is they left the set after the initial rehearsal and came back, and somebody didn't do some kind of check. And Alec was probably more, into the scene. Again, I'm just speculating here, but going off of the court documents. But I don't know if Script wants to kind of reiterate what you were saying before or not, real quick.
Just that, I mean, again, the actor always has responsibility to make sure the weapons wrangler of that particular gun is safe, and they have to witness the operations of that before it's being handed to them. So, again, I don't know what went on set, and I don't know. Like, here's the other thing. Like, I don't know why, with the reports of the AD being involved with touching weapons is a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
again, like, I don't have nowhere near the years of experience that Alec
No,
Baldwin
but you know
has, but
more
like
about it
even
than we
I
do.
would be of like, who the heck? Why are you touching this?
Yeah.
Like, and then the AD is the boss that he runs the set,
Right.
for the director and stuff. But again, they have things that they cannot do, and touching weapons, especially ones for that, if modified or tampered with, could kill someone, is not their purview.
Right. And not to switch gears here, but we got another one we can bring up on screen. Night King 01 says, I'm reading Dune after seeing the film. I have to ask, when should I stop reading, because I heard some books are hit and miss. Well, I think we're going to direct that at you, Andre. When should he stop reading?
Honestly, you shouldn't. You just start reading with the original first by Frank Herbert. If you love that and you want to continue, I think you should at the very least read the first three. And how much further you go beyond that is up to you. Be aware that the second book, that's like the one that's like the most iffy in some sense, but it's also the shortest.
Yeah. And speaking of Dune, Culture already found some Samba numbers, and it looks like Dune did better than Justice League. That's pretty good for HBO Max.
That's really good for HBO Max.
Yeah, and actually, better than In the Heights. I mean, it did really, really well. Breaking this down, this comes from Variety's intelligence platform. It's their little advanced area, and if you subscribe to it, you get a few extra stories. But every once in a while, they give everybody the idea, what's going on.
I saw it trending with almost 300,000 tweets yesterday. So I thought, like, there's no way this can be not at least somewhat successful.
Yeah, so from the story real quickly, Warner Brothers should be pleased with the domestic streaming performance of its latest day-and-date film, Dune, which hit U.S. theaters and HBO Max on Thursday. That's suggested by TV analytics firm Samba TV, which exclusively provided data to VIP Plus, showing that Dune was viewed on HBO Max by 1.9 million U.S. households from Thursday to Sunday, a figure higher than comparable opening weekend HBO Max viewership figures of past notable day-and-date releases, such as Zack Snyder's Justice League and In the Heights, which also debuted on Thursdays. The film generated more than $40 million in domestic box office revenue in the past weekend, and the total that helps Dune account for the biggest domestic weekend of the Warner Brothers 2021 to date. That's big news, kids. Look at where Dune falls here.
That's extremely promising for sequel prospects.
Number 2, yep.
1.9 million over the 3-day. That's I guess they're including Thursday in this, but that's great. Suicide Squad beat it to 2.8 million. That's okay. It didn't do very spectacularly at the box office, but that's pretty good, and it's in line with you have to think that DVK did 1.7 million in that same Friday to Sunday window. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty excited to get these data. This is the latest infographic from VIP via Samba. Now, Samba's only half the picture. We don't know, where, because there's other places where, that track this, including Roku and a few others that, you could have streamed this on. I feel like you're probably close to 4 million views if you really want to look at Samba as like half the picture. So that's a lot, man. That's a lot of people. And if they'd gone to the theaters,
that's households. So
yeah, exactly. And that's if they'd gone to the theaters, 2-person households, or 3-person households on average, that would have been just a giant. Remember we said they left 60 million on the table.
Yeah, that's about it.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. So let's hope that they really consider the numbers there.
Yep.
And then getting back to the super chats, the classic ones. Folk Google 2 says for $10, if it was period accurate cult, cylinder usually does not pop out. You have to look closely. Rotate cylinder to see each chamber. They do not have fire pins, but hammers.
Yep.
Not removable unless you replace.
Yeah, you have to replace the hammers on revolvers for sets. That's my understanding, and I've witnessed that happening, where they take apart a gun and replace the hammer.
And Ronnie J. Dio sends in a super chat, says Baldwin was a clear and present danger on set. Oh, too tsunami, my friend, too tsunami.
And back to the classics. Then we have Michael Miller, who says for 35 South African run. As barristers, we have a bar and an independent bar. The indie bar have to follow bar rules. Why isn't film the same? Indie films follow Hollywood rules.
Well, it's encouraged, but again, in independent film, there's no supervision, so to speak, on the independent circuit, in the same way as you have on the legal side of things.
Exactly. And then Far Outcast sent us another 2 super chats. So this today's show was sponsored by Far Outcast. If there is an actual plot to get rid of the victim, there is so much contrivance and happenstance it had to be planned by Ryan Johnson. That is actually true. That is completely
some subversions.
True. So yeah. Let's wait with getting into that until we have things that really don't add up. Then we can start going to those lines of thinking. We're not there yet. Crispy Critter says for $5, I cringe every time one of you refer to a gun as a toy. Yeah, we got that one already. And we referred to, when we did, we were referring to the cast, referring to it as such, and we were horrified by them doing so. Xenobit said, if they weren't paying enough money to safety crews, the quality of service can reflect how much or how little you pay. Plus, studios need less activists and more qualified labor. Yes, we got that one. And then we got this one. Xenobit also said, we need to realize that this was just an accident, but they need to learn that accidents sometimes happen. Next time they comment on the news.
Yeah.
It's very true. Very, very
Well,
true.
and that's where they should all
People shouldn't be throwing stones in glass houses.
heed Kurt Russell's words and just keep your fucking opinions to yourself. Patrick Mulligan has a super chat we can bring up on screen, Andre. He sends in $5 Canadian. Says 1984 Dune felt like a Cliff Notes version of the novel. Sadly, so does the 2021 version. The miniseries with the same time cover more and got more depth. I don't know. I have not seen the entirety of the miniseries, so I don't know how much they got in that first couple hours.
I agree. I think these are very fair observations.
But yeah,
the miniseries, in terms of like fidelity to the novel, the miniseries is as close as you are going to get. The only problem with it is honestly its budget. And I don't know how experienced the director is, but it was very clearly a production that was made for TV just before TV productions got to like the point where they were like timeless, like Battlestar Galactica. This was made just before then. And like, for instance, as I said before, the special effects look like PlayStation 1 era cutscenes. And the rest of it looks like it's like a film theater. So there's like no or very little things that hold up in terms of the production. But from the script point of view, absolutely, it is the most faithful. It really is. And for those that care, since I'm always asked to bring it up, yes, it has titties.
Oh my!
Well, in the non-US TV version, yes.
Yeah, the standard version everywhere else, but that is the only version I believe that has been
on video. I believe
put on Blu-ray. Yeah,
yeah. Eric Rodriguez also sends in a super chat. Thank you. Says, guys, in notion that the streaming ruined the box office is nonsense. I wouldn't have seen Dune otherwise.
Yeah, that's true, but that's you.
That's you,
wouldn't
Eric.
have seen it otherwise. I know of many others that only went to see Dune in theaters here in Norway because there wasn't a streaming option. If there was, they wouldn't have seen it in theaters. They would have seen it at home.
Well, so they didn't do it kind of like a Snyder thing with Dune, where they like released it worldwide.
No, Dune. That's how they watched it.
Yeah, they
Dune
fucked it up.
Like that's why I saw it 6 weeks ago, and you saw it then as well, didn't you? Because it was like released in limited markets 6 weeks ago, and then it came out
no, we didn't get it. We didn't get it until like like Thursday night or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah. And then it came out then in the rest of the world last Thursday and on HBO Max at the same time. But everyone really wanted to see it when I saw it 6 weeks ago, because that's when the hype came out, because it was out.
And let's not forget the bigger problem of this all. It actually hit the fucking high seas before it even hit HBO Max.
Yeah.
That's also true, and that's very frustrating because
not only before it hit HBO Max, before it hit theaters in the biggest markets.
Speaking of Dune, Brightest Day is curious, how long will this panel hold up technically?
How long will this Dune?
Hold on, this panel ain't holding up much longer. How long will this Dune hold up technically? Again, we don't know. Yeah, we're gonna have to see how well it does with the sequels, and then we'll ask ourselves this 10 years from now.
I think what he means is in terms of special effects.
I was gonna say, is that like a special effects thing? Because I think that it's gonna hold up for a while.
I think so too. Keep in mind like that. If we go back to the 1984 Dune, the special effects, as in the sets, they held up then, and they hold up to this day. Whereas the special, like the spaceship shots and everything like that, they were dated the moment it was in theaters. Okay, and if you go back to the 2000s versions, yeah, exactly. That too was it wasn't like anyone were like marveling, wow, the special effects. No one said that about the 2000s version, because it was TV budget, but no one ever said, wow, look at the effects on Babylon 5 or something, and that was
No.
kind of like the level
Right.
there.
And I think
Whereas, for instance, if you go back to like Battlestar Galactica, that is now almost 20 years old, but it only came a couple of years after that. That holds up pretty well. I submit that this version right here, we have now reached a point where things are so close to photoreal that it's going to hold up for a very, very long time. And I will submit another evidence of that. Like most of the stuff that's made in the past 20 years, most of it holds up pretty well, because
Yeah,
we
like
reached
Voyager.
kind of like a level where you can't really tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, I think like for example, Voyager holds up really well. You could still like the CGI that they used for that. I mean, it's like pretty old now, but it still holds
Well,
up. I just watched it recently.
yeah, that's the beauty, is that like pretty much like I hate CGI, but probably around the last 10, 15 years, we've hit that point where most CGI is pretty good, right? Like,
Exactly.
we're not going to get too much better. There's instances where it's gotten worse with certain Marvel and DC features. Don't get me wrong.
Or dinosaurs. Let's not forget
Dinosaurs,
about that.
yeah.
But
yeah, like
but
we've
still,
gotten to a point, like and I think that Denny was subtle enough with this one to where he wasn't overly blown with the CGI, because I'm surprised how much I'm hearing is like actual sets built and physical effects and miniatures or bigatures, if you want to call them that, which was of course what Peter Jackson used for Lord of the Rings and why that looked so good, as opposed to Hobbit, which was all green screen stuff mostly. Like that, I see that now seeing the movie. I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell a lot of this stuff was probably, miniatures, sets and all that kind of stuff melded with actual actors and stuff, kind of more old school. And it helped.
Yeah.
It did.
And also, as Chris points out there, that Voyager holds up because you will only ever see it in 480p.
Yeah, until they go back. If they ever go back and fix it, will be doubtful.
This is true. And also,
then Hyperguyver points out that SG1 had full frontal nudity. Just saying, for
Well,
$2.
it
was on
Showtime
Showtime originally. Yeah.
Wow.
And to be
Showtime
clear, the Dune 2000 TV series that also had full frontal, but only of background characters. Like the topless is one of the leads. So yeah, not that it matters one way or the other.
Yeah, Chani in
Yes.
the Dune series. Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
I think that like the next phase of technology with regards to movies and stuff like that will probably be like if we're gonna we're talking advancement here, you're talking like basically like almost holograms or like that kind of like what is that called, the
holodeck.
The holodeck?
Not holodeck, but like the things that they're doing now with
augmented reality.
Augmented reality, that's right.
Oh,
like
that.
The next phase will be probably like at first augmented reality, and then they'll move towards making
God, I hope
holodeck.
not. I'm too old for that. Like that augmented stuff needs to get the hell off my lawn.
I hear you, but I think that's basically where things are headed in the future. So
yeah. And then Night King 01 says for $4.99, I'm reading the book and now I'm thinking, why didn't the Sardaukar not disguise themselves as Harkonnens in the film? Also, what's the pronunciation? Harkonnen, I guess? Yeah, because the name is Finnish, so it would be Harkonnen. It's the proper way to say it. Of course, you can argue Harkonnen, yeah. Okay. Because it's a Finnish name. And you also have like the great houses of the Landsraad. If you want to like go back to the origin, the proper way to say that would be Landsråd. It's actually a Nordic term. It means the council of the land, Landsråd.
That's interesting. It's like the Padishah, like that means king or emperor in Farsi.
Exactly. So they have like some Arabic influence. They have some Nordic influence. So they have a little bit of everything from everywhere, which is pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So I like that level of detail that went into it. And then we have a couple of more classic ones here. Let's see, we got this one yet. We got this one. Icon said, Oh yeah, we got that one too. Ronnie J. Dio said Alec's actions on the set made it a red October. Ooh.
Oh my.
Oh boy.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the shadow will be hanging over him forever. Like I thought that was a good one, but yeah. But that's a problem when you're like an actor and you've been in like so many movies and the titles are memorable and something like this happens. It's too soon. It's too soon. But whenever he is brought up forever after, stuff like that's going to be brought up. So I think we might as well get used to it.
True.
And also, because this is also from Ronnie J. Dio, he's the one who had like the clear and present danger. And he also says, ABC, always be careful when Baldwin has a gun, says Ronnie J. Dio. And then we have, let's see. Then we are actually mostly caught up. There
Okay,
is
we got
one
Night
more
King
super
one
chat here from.
Well, I got a couple that I can bring up on screen. We got Night King 1 who says, oh, we got that one. Never mind.
Yeah, we got that one. There's only one more. There should be, I think.
Yeah, it's just the Xenobit one. Yep.
Yeah. Waiting to see Dune till I hear if it has Chun-Li.
Yeah, I was so upset she's not in it. I don't think
No, they only got this
Chani.
Chani girl, and it's just not the same.
Yeah, they pronounced her name wrong, and they race swapped her. I'm so pissed.
Oh my god.
And Xenobit wonders, would a trigger warning have made it safer?
Ooh.
What the safe or the set?
Oh, gosh. Like, I get it. It's easy to make jokes, guys, but let's be careful here.
Yeah, let's be careful. I mean, someone's life was lost here, but the beauty is that it's at the expense of Alec Baldwin, and yeah,
I get it, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but
if he wasn't involved, if it had been Chris Pratt, let's see what his Twitter would have said about the situation. But yeah. And Canadian Spider-Man says almost 1,000 likes. Everyone, can we smash that like and get us past 1,000 likes, because that would be pretty awesome. But yeah, just getting back to that, one really shouldn't be joking, because it is a tragic situation. It really is. I will again say that the important thing here, I think, is to find out exactly what happened, not so much to nail anyone, but as to find out exactly what went wrong, so one can learn from it and prevent it from ever happening again.
Yeah, but one of the things that went wrong, Andre, is hiring incompetent people. So that means stop hiring incompetent people.
That's step one.
That'll
get into a whole other conversation. And like, that's the problem with this situation, is if it is the armorist, like, this is like, that opens a whole new can of worms that I'm not even about to get into, because you and I have been discussing that in the background here.
Exactly.
So like, yeah, it's like, I hope that's.
I'll wait until we hear more about exactly what the armorer did or did not do. Then we can get.
That's my point. Yes, I don't want to.
It appears to be much to work with there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Especially about some of the things that we talk about, and it's sadly a prime example of some of the things we talk about, if that's the case. But I'm not going to go any further than that, because
no, we'll save it for when we know one way or the other, and until then, we will try to stick with what we do know, which at this juncture really isn't all that much. What I will say, though, is that over the course of this show, we got 2 new members. We have Bob A and V Star 333 that both joined us as new members today. So thank you so much, guys, and welcome. And I'm sorry I couldn't welcome you at the time when you signed up, but hopefully better late than never.
Thank you for everyone's support. Yeah. We just got to 1K likes as well. So thank you, everybody, for watching and smashing the like. Very good. I love the Midnight's Edge chat.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, even BK brings up another. This is the thing. There's so many possibilities yet before we know all of the ins and outs. And like, what if the armor wasn't incompetent, I think he means, but pressured into doing certain things, and the original crew left and was replaced with a less competent person. This is Or no, he doesn't mean competent, but pressure. Okay, yeah, that could be a case. Like, there's all kinds of scenarios we don't know. That's the big question Andre and I and some of the others I believe here have right now is, was the armorist present, or was she one of the ones that walked out with that crew that supposedly walked out that morning over the IATSE stuff?
Yeah.
Because that's a big question. And if she did she take the weapons with her? Were they left there? If she left them there, that's a whole nother fucking can of worms. So, like, yeah, again, that's the problem is we don't know enough now. There's too many variables.
Yep.
Indeed. So let us for right now try to reserve judgment until we have a clearer picture of exactly what happened and who were responsible for what. And we don't know at this juncture. We don't know much more than we did on Friday, because we've gotten more information, but that information isn't always necessarily neutral. So yeah, we shall just have to wait and see. With that, though, I would like to say thank you to everyone that has appeared in this lovely panel today. So thank you, Nina, for joining us. Thank you,
of
Script.
course.
Thank you, Culture.
Absolutely.
And of course, thank you, Sporking News Podcast, who also was here for a while earlier. And thank you to everyone in the chat who's been watching, liking, and sharing. And we got another super chat in the end there. Night King says, is it just me, or does anyone else want Sting to appear in the Dune sequels? It can be as a different character, but that would be cool. Or
Well, it's
Brad
funny.
Dourif.
Because I think Nina, you were on that with us last night, where we were talking to Elaine over at Nerd Cookies about our Dune, and we were kind of casting the the Emperor.
The Padishah.
We're like, Kyle MacLachlan would be a good choice. Sting wouldn't be a bad choice for him. Actually,
Sting would be good too. My vote is Kyle, because I just
between
want
those
him
two, that'd be
back.
neat. Yeah,
I think it would be cool. But yeah,
That could
Sting
be
would be
very
really
cool.
cool too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brad Dourif would be a little too old, though, I think, depending on how they go with the story. But you were saying some Culture?
Oh, I was going to say there's one more member chat that just came through.
Yeah,
wow. We don't want to miss that. It's from Hillis Mallory. Thank you so much. Who says, don't hire incompetent people, but what about diversity? Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to earlier, but I don't want to jump to that conclusion because we don't know enough yet.
I did yesterday on my Sunday show. I was because you don't have to talk specifically about this case. You can just say, if this is the situation, right? We need people with experience. Merit is what every industry should run upon. Experience. You come up in different professions and in different trades by being an apprentice, by learning these skills under another skilled person. And then you're less prone, if you're, following in their footsteps, to have to have these types of accidents. But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Then again, Sting may be too old.
I totally agree with you, Culture. I think there's a level of accountability that has to be had here, and I think it starts with hiring the right people for the job instead of whatever the hell is going on over there right now.
Yeah, I'm just saying that because we don't know, because the media is trying to paint the individual in a lot of bad lights right now, so we don't know for sure. But she doesn't help her case in some points. But
I'm not. But that's the thing, Tom. I don't even think I'm not specifically talking about this situation.
No,
I know. I'm saying this,
and that goes with the
highlighting
Batwoman
bigger
one
problem.
And
yeah, like
and I brought it up before too. Yeah, and I've said this is what's going to happen sooner or later if you keep hiring people over the color of their skin or what's between their legs more so than their actual experience and knowledge.
Yeah, or their sexual orientation.
Or their sexual orientation.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Taker610 sent us another $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, the two were not actors, correct? This does not even happen during filming take. Brandon Lee was at least an actor in a scene. Why were these two even around? Alec is... Okay, Taker, we brought this up a few times before. We don't know the exact chain of events yet. The court documents do say they were supposedly rehearsing the scene, at which case then Alec would have been pointing it at the camera, which is where these two individuals were probably at setting up the scene. So
you mean the director and the cinematographer who has to be there all the time?
Gosh damn it. That's what I meant. Yes.
Just give me 1 second, because there are many people that are wondering, how the hell did they get shot? Why would he be aiming at the camera in the first place? Give me 1 second here.
Well, I'll
and I
put you
shall
this way: if he was
demonstrate to
aiming
you.
at the camera operator would be in more harm. So he probably wasn't aiming at the camera.
She was the camera operator. I
No,
do
she was the
believe that-
cinematographer. The camera
Yeah.
operator was with her, but to one other side, because that's the
Because it
layout
just
is
means
that
that
they're
he
not
was
always
shooting
behind.
off to that angle then, or
He's
whatever,
probably
but
shooting
yeah.
off to the side, yeah.
Yeah,
Which
I
means
shall.
that he is actually taking the safety precautions, which is he's not shooting directly into the camera. I mean, that unless the director said otherwise, like we're going to do one this way,
Yeah.
one this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an
Right, there you
illustration
go.
here
Yeah.
on screen right now. There you go. That's how it would happen. Look at that. This is a still from a movie. There you have the actor who is firing the gun in the general direction of the crew of the camera. And if there was a live round in that bullet that Daniel Craig is holding right there, it would have been a very nasty situation.
Yes.
That's how that would happen.
We got a couple of super chats that flew in here at the last minute, though. It says, Night King 1, thank you so much for another super chat. Sorry to change the subject, but can we talk about the absolute miscasting of the Uncharted movie? At least they could have had Stephen Lang as Sully. Yeah, I'm not a big Uncharted fan, so I can't really speak to this. But yeah, I can see where people want like Nathan Fillion and stuff like that. Anybody here an Uncharted fan?
I am. I used to be, meaning I played all the games. But like, I mean, the first one was an absolutely amazing game. I agree. I think the casting choices were a little questionable. I mean, I like Marky Mark, don't get me wrong, but like, and I don't know, there's like all these rumors that he's supposed to be like the young guy and he's gonna grow the mustache by the end of the movie and like all this different like these theories. But I feel like, I don't know.
What?
Like,
They're lying,
No.
I'm sure.
No,
Yeah, I
what?
don't-
No.
yeah, that's not
Sorry, that
what
was my
we
Marky
want.
Mark.
No, but that's the
Say
thing.
hi
though,
to your
like,
mother for me.
Say hi to your mother for me.
we all wanted like people who are watching this are mostly like fans of the video games, and it's like we all
Transform.
wanted the character. Like I don't know why studios do this. They just take like these iconic characters and then they're like, well, we're gonna make them like, you know, grow older in the movie and like all this stuff. It's like, no, just give us what we want. That's it.
Well, it's because they always want to start a franchise here. But like the other side of this is, though, this is what I hate about Hollywood is like it's almost like a given. If like the fans are like in unison about who they want to play somebody in a movie or whatever or TV show,
Mhm.
9.9 times out of 10, the studio is going to go, nope, we're going to get the complete opposite.
Exactly. And it's weird. That's weird
It's
to
like-
me. That's weird to me. I'm like, what? I don't get it.
Very rarely have they ever been just like, yeah, that's a good idea, and they do it. Like it's
I
Like,
think
for-
that Josh Trank who did really good in explaining his mentality in doing it. That's one thing I really appreciated because, like, I think that Miles Teller was so bad at Mr. Fantastic
almost
because people
everybody was.
focused. Yeah, everyone was miscast in that movie. Every last person in that movie was miscast. And what he told the Hollywood Reporter or something was that when he was a kid, he was a fat kid, and he had like moobs, so the other kids would tease him. And then he decided that one day he was going to prove them all wrong. He was
So do
going
I,
to
but you
show.
don't see me fucking up the Fantastic Four.
I was actually just gonna bring up the Fantastic Four because like I think like one of the most fan requested casting was for like Emily Blunt and what's his name?
John
Jim.
Krasinski?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
you're
Jim
definitely
Blunt.
not
You were
getting
finishing
that.
your story, Andre. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, anyway, point was then that he, since he was bullied and everything, he wanted to prove everyone wrong. He wanted to just shoot everything so people would see how brilliant he was. So he deliberately wanted to cast people that would piss you off, and then afterwards you would go into theater and say, oh yeah, I see what he was doing there. This really worked amazing, apart from the fact that it didn't, and it sucked, and it was every bit as bad as everyone said it was going to be.
Yep. Yeah. Adam Wolford sent in $5. Says there will always be a master and apprentice. They want to get rid of those names and just have the people where they're with no experience. Yeah. Well, you have that problem too. And again, that goes with and against a lot of things we're saying here, but it's a discussion to be had, and we've had it several times over. I'm sure we'll have it many times again. Xenobet also sent in a couple more super chats here before we go and get to some koalas in the rain. Says, I just wanted to point out that Josh Trank's Fantastic Four made less money than Brokeback Mountain.
I'll do you one better. It wiped out the profits of X-Men Days of Future Past.
I was going to say, wait a minute now.
Wow.
Brokeback Mountain actually made money, though. There's no...
Yeah.
So, yeah, but if you mean by wiping off the profits of it, if they're the same company... Yeah.
Josh Trank's Fantastic Four lost as much as X-Men Days of Future Past earned.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So here's, though, this is the one I wanted to end on because it's so perfect, even though this came in a little earlier. Xenobit said, Batgirl cast Brendan Fraser. Let's go, Brandon.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's brilliant.
Yes. It is indeed. So thank you for that, Xenobit. That's a perfect one to go out on, I think. I think everybody got a nice smile. Oh, we missed one from Tina Bojan. I am so sorry about that. If Baldwin was practicing a cross draw with a loaded weapon, that's a field of 180 degrees in front of the actor that would be in the line of fire. Yeah. That's pretty much what Andre was kind of trying to say. Go ahead.
It's actually 270 degrees, honestly.
Yeah. And did you have something to say before that, Culture? I seen you pop on.
Oh, no,
there.
I was just in defense of the trailer from Uncharted. I'm not as down on that film as others. I actually think it should be pretty good, but that's just me. It's just me.
I'm still gonna watch it, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it works out, because I like to watch those things and see how things work before I give it a full judgment.
And then we also got a member chat from Comrade Roof Korea in the base.
Yeah, and thank you, Nina and Script, for grabbing it, because I can't see it here in the repository.
So hopefully we didn't miss anyone earlier because I wasn't here.
We might have, but if we did, then
sorry about that.
Sorry, yeah.
As I say, I think Culture probably would have kept on it, but we lost a Mike. He's been dealing with all kinds of stuff lately, so hopefully Mike returns to us soon and we have him back. We miss him. I miss him on my couch.
Aww.
Mexican Iron Man.
What did Comrade Roof Korean say?
Comrade Roof Korean said, because he said, last bit of conspiracy, mostly coincidence. Husband of the deceased is a lawyer representing Sussman, a Clinton lawyer who started Russiagate.
Ooh, hello.
All kinds of stuff. Like,
there's a lot of weird coincidences like that. And again, you can always attribute that to certain people hanging out around certain people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just Hollywood. Like, everyone knows each other.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's just the way it is.
It's just like the other one that I saw about the Crow, that the fact that her dad worked on one of the Crow sequels. I'm like, that's like saying that you're like related to my cousin's brother's friend's former roommate shit. Like, that's not even remotely even a connection, right? Because nothing happened on the sequels to the Crow, and it was her father, not her. So what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Like,
yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah. That's like saying it rained on Tuesday because I sneezed yesterday.
Well, I mean, the only thing that it could mean is if the father was basically, like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
But he didn't work on the first movie. He worked on one of the sequels, which had nothing go wrong.
Yeah.
Except for the movies themselves were shit.
Oh, I see. Like, it wasn't the one that, like,
exactly my point. Okay, that's like saying, I sneezed yesterday, so it's going to rain next Tuesday.
Right.
There's no connection whatsoever. It's just,
that's funny. Yeah, there's a lot of overreach. Like, people are trying to, like, make sense of.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
and that's the thing, right? Like, people trying to make sense of a really tragic situation. So, I mean, like, this kind of stuff happens all the time where people just kind of, like, jump with it. And
again, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that this person wasn't negligent in the situation. We don't know that yet, right? Like, but things that kind of stuff is not going to help the case at all.
No, I agree.
007 Angelo says, why don't they say hot gun every time until the last person the actor inspects it? Well, I think that would get confusing with the way things are, right?
Well, not only that, 007 Angelo, thank you for the super chat. Think about what you're asking here. You want to rely on an actor to do the final inspection on anything?
I wouldn't
either.
I wouldn't
and
want
that's
them
the thing, right?
Anything, yes. No.
Like, again, when you're dealing with weapons on a set, it's not the same rules as a person's private armory.
And that's what I've been trying to
depending on the actor, I wouldn't trust an actor to put two sticks in a cross.
Yes.
Wow.
No, you're not wrong.
Like, and you do that for safety. Like, purely safety. Like,
Well,
no
look at-
individual inspects a weapon on set by themselves. There are always witnesses, because if there aren't witnesses and something goes wrong, then all you have is hearsay conjecture and nothing fact-based to verify that on, in which case you don't get a proper resolution to that situation,
Which is,
nor do you
you
get
know,
the information needed to prevent that being repeated in the future. So please, people, don't try and put all of this on the shoulders of one individual to only be the one inspecting any type of weapon on a set. That is the definition of negligence, especially in a public place like a movie set.
Yeah. And Stanley points out exactly, actors are morons who can barely remember their lines, or not at all in the case of some. So yeah,
and even if they have had guns training, in a lot of cases, it's especially in independent situations. I'm assuming it's more of a crash course, right? So like, it's still not something that I would
Not really. I mean, it's supposed to be a few weeks for the actors. And even then, like, even soldiers who have like retired and become actors, they are not given the responsibility of checking their weapons as well. Like, even if they check it themselves and they do everything right, the gun wrangler and the prop master would come over to them and say, "Don't do that again."
Yeah, I mean,
And they don't care about your rank or experience. They're like, "Don't you ever do that again."
I learned a lot about that from Joseph Balazzi when I was doing the Dark Matter streams, because like he said this exact same stuff as you're saying, Script Doctor. Like, there is a lot of rules and regulations that go along with a weapon usage of any kind, like prop guns or whatever. And they train you thoroughly before you even pick up like one of those said weapons.
Then if that's the case, because what's going, and again, this is a stupid rumor mill. What's going around on this one then again is that they had like 0 weapons training on this thing. Like, they had like an hour each, like that one actor was saying, right?
And that's a problem. That's a problem.
Ackles, I forget his name.
Yeah, so this is actually a little bit more like this. Yeah, one of the actors who was involved. He said he only had like an hour of training from this individual,
which is terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem.
That sounds like negligence to me then, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Then we got one more super chat.
Yeah, from Marty, who says for 10 Canadian dollars, it is impossible to claim a person is handling a firearm safely if they don't even know the state of that firearm. I am an infantry veteran. I'm speaking with formal training in mind.
And you're exactly correct. That is the mentality on set with firearms. That's why the actors have to be present and witness the armorer take apart, put together, set up the gun, and do all the directions, and why the actor does not do that themselves. So
exactly. And also, before we go, I just want to highlight the picture on screen, which comes as usual from Douglas Nelson. Amazing art. Thank you so much. Really love it. Look here, there you have like Michael Myers and Venom grabbing all the money.
How well did Halloween
and
do
James
this?
Bond being like left in the dust.
I was gonna say, how well did Halloween do this weekend?
I don't know exactly what it did, but relative
Halloween
to
dropped
budget, amazingly
71%.
well.
That's pretty close to what I said it was going to, because it's already on fucking Peacock.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. The streaming, because this should have been a big weekend for it. Next week it should have been even bigger.
This image makes me sad because I want part 2, and we
still
need money
get it because it did really well on HBO Max.
So which we said was part of the. But we got an interesting other story. I mean, we're not going to talk about it today, but the Russos were speaking out about Kevin Feige. Did you see this, Andre?
No, I did not. What are they saying?
It's juicy.
We know that they are Team Chapek. So
here's what they said. Here's their quote. This goes back to Civil War. Evidently, they had a little civil war with Kevin Feige. Says, we reached a point where we said out loud in the room, we're not interested in continuing as directors of this movie if it's going to be about managing politics and the third act, says Joe Russo.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin was very energized by that. And also maybe it gave him some leverage in the situation because we were so clear about our point of view. So they're basically saying that he then used it against them. Yeah. So I wonder what he meant by the politics side of things.
Well, I have a theory Captain America versus Iron Man and what they're doing.
Yeah.
No. I have a theory.
No.
What's the name of the guy? I forgot his name right now. The one who didn't show his face, but who was one of the powers that be at Marvel. You know, the guy.
Perlmutter.
Perlmutter, yeah. The politics there was that Kevin Feige was able to outmaneuver Perlmutter and get Perlmutter away from the picture and answer directly to Iger. I think that's when when Feige went completely SJW, he probably was the entire time, Perlmutter was keeping him in check. Without Perlmutter, there was nothing holding him back.
I don't think the Russos are ever going to work for Marvel again. I really don't. At least
I
not
don't
after
know. Yeah, I mean, talk about throwing some serious shade on the Marvel, the MCC group, which were the people that were essentially making the decisions. And that's the problem. You're making
because Feige got rid of them after he got rid of Perlmutter.
Yep. Yeah, he got rid of the, movie making by committee is basically what he did. So that's kind of smart.
Makes me wonder if that's how Endgame got so convoluted.
Maybe.
Well, part of that was also the Russos' idea, so
that I know, but like it's
because they pitched that idea to the editor, and he says if you can pull it off, that'll be amazing. And
I mean, I don't hate Endgame because I'm one of the people that actually says I've liked it on more subsequent viewings, as opposed to I've heard other people that have said they liked it less. So like I understand it goes both ways here, and it is a problematic film in the sense that, and I hate using that term, but just in the sense of its complete, execution. I mean, the idea is kind of sound, but at the same time, it's really hard to make an argument for that movie that they did it for any other reason than to give Tony a kid and keep her part of the canon. Like that seems like the only real reason to do it the way they did it. It just makes no sense to me. But with that, I think we've reached the end of the program. What about you guys?
I think so too. We are caught up with everything. So then again, I would like to say thank you to everyone in the panel. Thank you to everyone in the chat. And be sure to check back in another 4 hours, because that's when Toxic Femininity begins, doesn't it, Nina?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if I can do a little mini plug for Toxic Femme. So come and check us out at 8 Eastern, I believe it is. Yep, so
7 Central.
7 Central, that's right. We will be back with Lorena and Mandy and myself. And oh, wait, Culture Casino wants to be on the panel? I mean, you've got the hair.
You got the hair. You got shave.
I don't have the other assets. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We've had other handsome men on the stream before. So
how the hell did you find a picture of her in the mask?
It wasn't easy.
Because I told you when I did our video on it, I had a hard ass time finding a picture of her in the actual costume. I'm like, that's not her. That's not her. That's her stunt woman. That's definitely not her.
Wow.
That's amazing.
One more plug for me on my own channel Wednesday for Infinite Talk with John Talks. We're going to have a special guest, Eric July. So if you guys like to talk politics and everything like that, please come and join us.
I tried getting him on here and I can't get. How did you?
I'll nudge him. I'll nudge him towards you.
Awesome. Like, hey, I talked to him like a couple of weeks ago or months ago on an email, and then I just never heard back from him again. But all right, well, check out Toxic Femme, check out Nina's channel, check out Script's channel, check out Culture's channel. He has the 6-minute review the
links for all will be in the description for this video before long.
I'll actually be joining him tomorrow afternoon, and I try to drag Andre onto those too. So we'll see about that. That's at 2:30 Central and 3:30 Eastern time. So see you there on Culture's channel. Other than that, see you tonight on Toxic Femininity. And it is time for some koalas in the rain. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koala, koala. Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given.